Here we go.
Yeah.
It is 6 o'clock. We're going to call the Planning Commission to order. Carla, can you do a roll call vote, please? Or roll call, please, not a vote.
Commissioner Sparks,
Present.
Commissioner Berman,
Here.
Commissioner Gilardi,
Here.
Vice Chair Long,
Here.
Chair Moffett.
Here. All right, please stand for the land acknowledgement. And Shelley, will you lead us in the land acknowledgement today?
I would be happy to.
Thank you.
The city of Cotati recognizes that we're on the ancestral lands of the coastal Miwok, who are the original caretakers of this area. We respectfully acknowledge the indigenous peoples who have made stewarding and maintaining a relationship on this land as knowledge keepers for millennia. This acknowledgement does not take place of authentic relationships with indigenous communities, but serves as a gesture of respect to the land we are on.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving right along, we have approval of minutes. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. There are no nays. Motion passes. Any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes, Chair Moffett.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to welcome public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the commission on any item listed on the matters at hand or any items not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission may do so at this time. So now is the time for anything not on the agenda that any public member would wish to speak about. And we'll go first to our Zoom attendees.
Chair Moffett, there are no Zoom attendees at this time.
Thank you. Audience attendees, you're good. All right, fabulous. This is just moving along. I love it. All right, matters at hand. Planning Commission reorganization for the calendar year 2026.
Thank you, Chair Moffett. The commission bylaws identify that on the second meeting of each calendar year, start in January, the commission votes to select a chair, a vice chair, and the secretary. The director of the department typically serves as the secretary to the planning commission, supported by our wonderful staff. The vice chair typically moves into the chair position, although that's not a requirement. And then a new vice chair is nominated, and we do need a vote for both the chair to confirm the new chair and confirm the vice chair. The duties of the chair are identified in the staff report, and typically these positions are held for the calendar year.
Thank you very much.
Is this a time to thank our chair?
It is a perfect time to thank our outgoing chair.
Okay. I want to thank our outgoing chair for an amazing job this year. The last meeting was a typical Chair Moffett meeting where it's all about the heart and it's all about the residents of Cotati. And it's amazing to see how heartful you are and thoughtful and listening. And I've never seen anybody invite the resident that was going to be affected the most back up to the mic to check and see if this was going to work for her. That was just beyond, and so it blew me away. And this commission as well, coming up with a answer to the problem was remarkable to watch and witness. But I think that it's you and how you run this meeting with such heart, and the ego is left at the door. So thank you very much for all you've done for the city, And I hope that we can continue to do what you've done. I look forward to the next year. Thank you.
I agree to that.
Likewise.
Well, thank you very much. And I know that we'll continue because, we've come a long way, I feel like, as a commission. Do you remember when we were all baby commissioners a couple of years ago, going on field trips to learn about how systems work? We've grown together.
I'm still a baby commissioner.
You are.
I went through the.
We'll bring you to the water treatment plant too.
I went through the pathways to leadership, so I feel like I got some insight. That,
Okay.
yeah, it's helpful. But I agree. I wasn't here for the last meeting. But I did watch the recording, and you all did an amazing job of navigating that. There was a lot of concerns from the citizenry, and understandably, and I think we all collectively, mostly you all, did a great job of finding good compromise. So yeah, thank you.
We knew that if you were here, you'd want that tree saved.
You are 100% correct. Yes, yes.
So we were channeling.
Thank you.
We were
Thank you.
channeling you. Well, I think that we will have a wonderful next year by nominating Ryan Long as our next chair. And I think we'll have an additionally wonderful next year by nominating Ed Gilardi as our vice chair. And so I wonder if you'll both accept those nominations.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll second Ryan's nomination.
And I'll second Ed's.
Do we need to do individual votes or can we vote as a packet?
You can vote as a body if you'd like, yeah.
Okay, so for both of them at the same time? Or do they need to be?
As
Oh,
long as the
yes.
votes are the same.
Oh,
for
got
each,
it.
then
Understood. So do we have a motion to approve Ryan and Ed?
You made the motion and.
I made the
I s-
motion. You're
and I
right, and then you seconded it.
So you can call for a vote.
All right, let's call for a vote. Roll call vote on this one? Thank you.
Commissioner Sparks,
Aye.
Commissioner Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Gilardi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Long,
Yes.
Chair Moffett.
Aye. Motion passes. Congratulations, gentlemen. And with that, we're going to do a little shifting and reorganizing. And
Do we have cake?
Chair Long, you are
No cake?
no cake tonight, I'm sorry.
You were supposed to make it.
okay. And, right? Did like a reception. They had cake and I know, I saw it on the video.
Quick question. Do we need to vote to confirm the secretary or is that?
That's designated by either the bylaws or the zoning code
Okay, so,
decided already.
okay, great.
Yeah. Congratulations. Okay, let's shuffle around and then Chair Long, the meeting is yours.
Thanks.
We'll flip flop.
I'm pretty sure the vice chair lives. This is the spot.
Just while we're getting reorganized, staff is planning to do a land use 101 presentation just to kind of refresh us all on how meetings are run and some of the laws that apply to our decision making. And we don't have a date yet, but I will take this opportunity to point out what's called ex parte communication. And so there's been some changes to the Brown Act, which we will summarize in our land use 101. But one of the things that the Brown Act requires is that all information that is used to make a decision be publicly available or disclosed. And so this is just a reminder that a commissioner visiting a site or talking to a neighbor or talking to an applicant is ex parte communication. And so it's something that we should get in the habit of doing, just to disclose to the public when we visit a site, when we talk to a neighbor, when we talk to an applicant. And then you don't have to add much more than that unless you learn something new that's not in the packet or that's not general knowledge from that conversation or that visit. So just generally you could say, I visited the site, I talked to the applicant, or I visited the site, I talked to the neighbors.
Question on what constitutes visiting a site? Like if we just drive by quickly to get a visual, does that count? Or do we have
It's
to
worth
like physically
disclosing,
go
it's
there?
worth
Okay.
disclosing, just, and I always encourage to visit properties where we have projects, because inevitably you're gonna see something, you're gonna learn something. You'll bring something to that site with the perspective of knowing that there's a development project proposed or something like that,
Mhm.
that you may not have when you drive by it in your normal commute or something like that.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it is worth pointing out if you visited specifically because it's on the agenda.
Got it. Okay.
When would be the appropriate time to disclose that?
Yeah, when the item's being introduced.
Okay.
So we'll try to be thoughtful about how the meeting organization is run to provide an opportunity for ex parte communication before staff jumps into their presentation.
I think it's on page 12 of the agenda packet. Rule 19, item B. Remember reading that.
That is correct. Yeah.
So it's after the public hearing is opened, apparently.
Okay, so do we proceed now?
Yes, thank you. We're reorganized. I just wanted to take an opportunity to jump in there while we were reseating.
All right, then we will go on to the matters at hand. I believe that's next on the agenda. The Ayahuasca Restaurant Bathroom Addition Design Review. So now would be the time to do ex parte communication.
Yep.
If anybody would like to disclose anything.
I drive by it every day.
I also did a visual exterior expansion check of the front of the building.
I looked at it from the 8-ball.
I walked around the front and back, checked out the building, tried to look in through where they boarded it up, would look into the windows.
Yeah, I also drive by it every day, and once I saw it on the agenda, I paid extra close attention to the boarding up of it, but I didn't get out of my car, so, but I'm familiar with the site.
I did talk to several of my fellow Cotati residents about it and garnered a lot of their feedback as well. So.
Great. Well, thank you, commissioners, Chair Long, Vice Chair Gilardi, members of the commission. As identified, the item before the commission this evening is preliminary and final design review for small project at 8201 Old Redwood Highway. And we'll go to the next slide. So it's a request for design review approval to allow the construction of a 400 square foot bathroom addition and remodeling of the rear patio to accommodate use of the site as a restaurant. We'll go to the next slide. This is the aerial of the downtown, and advancing the slide once will highlight the property there. It's currently Spanky's Bar. It's the performer in at the beginning site, and the Sandal Lady leather repair shop. The next slide shows the zoning. And then you advance it one more time, it'll highlight the slide again. And as we talked about recently, downtown is kind of a patchwork of zoning. There's multiple zoning districts for the downtown specific plan itself. Those are all the purple there. So there's the historic core, which is the actual core of downtown as we think about it. There's La Plaza, which is kind of the parcels just north of the core of downtown, where the city is anticipating growth and redevelopment occurring all the way up to Highway 116, the hotel site, all of that. And then even further along Commerce is the downtown specific plan. And it's a mixed use area and imagines properties redeveloping, intensifying, but with a majority of the downtown as we know it now being preserved. It does recognize that preservation of those structures will require modifications to them as they morph into uses as time goes on. And so just wanted to highlight this. We'll go to the next slide. So here's an aerial photo of the site. Again, advancing it one more time, we'll highlight the property. It does have on-site parking to the south of the building, which will be preserved as a part of the project. Also shared access to what serves as the downtown parking currently, but that is privately owned, and the city is leasing that month to month. All of the parking that's back in that area now is not owned by the city, and it is not guaranteed to be maintained as parking into the future. However, this project fully maintains its on-site parking and access to the mixed-use development that fronts on La Plaza. Just to the northwest of this, you can see the roofs there kind of to the left. That parking would have to be maintained for those units, and the access across this parcel would have to be maintained into the future. But the parcel where the Tip Top Cleaners is, the sign company, Katati Coffee and Shinge, is all privately owned, and all of the parking for it is part of a privately owned lot, just as a informational item for the commission. We'll go to the next slide. So some background on the site. There's more detail in the staff report, but this building was constructed, as far as we know, in 1932 and served as the Katati Inn. At some point around 1968, it transitioned to the Inn at the Beginning, which was a coffee shop, restaurant, kind of bar and music venue. And there's a storied history of all of the Bay Area and even worldwide musicians who have played at that location and really put Katati on the map as far as the Bay Area music scene goes. In 2007, it became Friar Tuck's. It did serve as a Katati Cabaret for a period in between, but it became Friar Tuck's until 2021, where Friar Tuck's closed, kind of following COVID. Through that time period, the city adopted the downtown specific plan and kind of reimagined how downtown is going to redevelop. And then the current owner purchased the building from the former owner with the goal of renovating it and open a new restaurant in downtown Katati. Getting to the next slide. Here are the elevations showing the proposed 400 square foot restroom addition. So the top elevation there is actually the rear of the existing building. It's just proposed to be repainted and some new doors and windows installed. Those will not be visible because the patio will be wrapped in a new redwood fence, which is shown on the middle slide to the left side of that kind of dark gray addition that's proposed to house two new men's and a women's restroom, or two new restrooms serving the patrons of the restaurant. Through the renovation process, which is underway, it was determined that the current restrooms are not adequate to meet the ADA requirements or the needs of the new dining room. And so the need for a new 400 square foot addition was identified. And then the project does propose to fully renovate the interior, which is underway, and then preserve all of the exterior of the building except for the area where this small addition is proposed. We'll go to the next slide. It's highlighted, the area of the addition is highlighted here. And I believe you advance it one more time and it will show the highlight as seen from the front of the building, which is not visible on these slides. And staff will work to improve the visibility of that. We'll go to the next slide. So this is a kind of an aerial or a view of the floor plan. Advancing the slide one more time, I'll highlight the new square footage proposed right there. Just again, the dark gray. It's 400 square foot addition, remodeling the rear patio, adding some landscaping and planters, and then renovating and preserving the rest of the building. No element of this project is proposed to modify the sign. However, the applicant has indicated an interest in removing the current Inn at the Beginning sign and putting the restaurant signs in that location. A condition of approval that's before the commission this evening identifies that that sign is required to be preserved and incorporated into the decor of the building or donated to a local philanthropic community. And one thing I meant to put into this slide, and I don't have it, is there's precedent for this at Redwood Cafe. Some of their old signage is in the patio area on the back. And so they've kind of preserved that history while also allowing the business to transition and rename itself in that location. So just know that that has been conditioned, but there's no sign permit or sign request as a part of the design review. Commission can ask questions about that and provide some input on that condition if it's not seen as being adequate. And we'll go to the next slide. Getting into some of the requirements and development criteria. as talked about, the 2-block kind of core downtown this language is specifically from the downtown specific plan, stating it's to receive sensitive attention through restoration, renovation, and careful additions that maintain the existing 2-story character. And then there's a policy or a goal, require restoration or renovation of the historic buildings to the maximum extent feasible. And then one thing that staff incorporated into the staff report is the Secretary of the Interior Standards. Cotati doesn't have any designated landmarks except for the actual hub itself as a designated landmark, but none of our structures are. The downtown specific plan did identify buildings of local importance, but they aren't designated landmarks. And there's just some technical distinctions with regards to the law in that case. But staff did apply the Secretary of the Interior Standards, which is what you would use to look at renovation projects that are designated as landmarks to this project, and to their extensive documents as to how this restoration is to be done. But in summary, any new square footage should be kind of basically smaller and less. It should be less of a. I'm sorry, my vocabulary is failing me today, but it should be subservient to the existing historic building. It should not seek to take away from it. It shouldn't kind of be closer to the street. But then also you don't want it to try to copy the historic architecture either. You don't want it to be Disneyland, right? You want it to clearly delineate what's old on the building and what's new. And the idea behind that is that it's clear to the average person, oh, there's a historic building and then this is a new square footage that's not part of that historic character, but doesn't also overpower it. From the staff perspective, this project absolutely does that. The new square footage is very simple, but also very clearly modern and new, not trying to copy elements of the historic building, but really being subservient to them, stepping back from them, allowing the primary facade to really still engage with the street, but providing the extra use that's needed for the restaurant to function into the future and continue to function for years to come. We'll go to the next slide. Every decision needs a CEQA determination. The project qualifies for section 15303. Categorical exemption because it's just minor modifications to the existing building. It also is consistent with the EIR that was done for the downtown specific plan. So staff has identified that this project is absolutely consistent with CEQA. And we'll go to the next slide. And so it's recommended by the Community Development Department that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving preliminary and final design review to allow the construction of a 400 square foot addition and patio renovations at 8201 Old Redwood Highway. The applicant architect is here as well as the ownership team. They may have some words, but they're also available if there's any clarifying questions.
All right, thank you. And now we would open up for public comment at this time, or
Unless there's any clarifying questions
Okay.
for staff from the commission.
yeah, let me go ahead and open up for the commissioners.
I do have one question. I don't know if now is the appropriate time, if it's necessarily a clarifying question, but in that slide, what the slide that showed the front, it has the door, the green door that I believe is going to be for the office. Is that planned to be like an operable door in the future?
We can,
Okay. So maybe that question can wait, or I don't know. What do you think, Chair?
Why don't we just open it up for public comment real quick, and then we can go through that
Well,
process.
I've got something speaking to the staff. This is the in of the beginning, correct? Because you refer to it as the in at the beginning.
that was a typo on staff's part. My apologies.
Okay, well, it's twice. It's also, it's on page 17 and also in our, when we make our, resolution. It's in the resolution that way too. So,
We'll get that correct.
Huh. I didn't notice that. I read it as in of the beginning. Yeah. Good catch.
Any other comments from the commission before we go to public comment? No. All right, any comments from the public on the agenda item? Carla, is there anybody online that would wish to comment?
Chair Long, still no Zoom attendees.
All right. That closes public comment period. And now we can go to the architect if they'd like to say anything and address any of our questions.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions. Congratulations. This is my first change of command that I have seen.
I'm sorry?
This is the first time I witnessed a change in command on the.
Oh.
Thank you, everybody. To answer your question, all the doors at what used to be the leather shop, they're supposed to remain. They're not designated as egress door or exit doors, but they're all existing to remain. So they're going to be operable. Also, sorry about the wait. I know you guys drive by or walk by the site all the time. My client, the owner's been dealing with trying to solve issues, some issues that we're trying to solve with PNE regarding the gas line, electrical power supply, funding from the project. They're trying to keep it family owned, so they're trying not to get any investors involved or anything. So that's always adds another challenge. So that's part of the process. And also trying to, because we had these plans permit already with the restaurants located at where the restaurants were located originally. But when we decided we had to upgrade them to be ADA. And by doing that, the space that the restaurants were taking got almost twice as big. So it was reducing a little too much of the space that you will desire as a patio. That's when, we came up to the idea to see if we can move it to the location that we're proposing to move it now. Other than that, we are excited to try to have this building recover some of its previous heritage. We're trying to change only the back portion of the project to try to leave the frontage as close to original as possible. We're trying also it looks like at some point a canopy was added to the leather shop, but instead of using half barrel tiles, they use shingles. So on our proposal, which is also one of the conditions of the approval, is to update those to also match the existing half barrel tiles, so it's all consistent. And then the other issue, which is the sign, we know about the site. We talked to a lot of residents. We're very involved to trying to, do the best for the city of Qatar, its residents, and also the restaurant. Obviously, the existing sign is on prime location for a sign for the business. So our ideal situation will be to carefully remove and preserve the sign. Also do a little bit of restoration, because if you actually go up there and you see it from close, it's actually falling and breaking apart. So ideally, we'll try to restore to the best of our abilities without trying to make it like too modern or too new, so it looks original. And the original idea was to mimicking what I can't remember the name of the business that also, Redwood Cafe. Because we saw that, because, when we were looking at the building, we'll go there for breakfast. And we saw what they did with the sign, so we thought it was a good idea. And we were planning to, it's not shown on the slide, but put it probably on the back wall of the patio where the new fence is going to go as part of the decoration to the restaurant. But we are also open to the idea of donating it to a nonprofit. I don't know which one, but client is okay with that too. And I don't know if you guys have any other questions.
I just want to say how excited I am about the restaurant coming in. We've eaten at the location in Petaluma a few times. I did talk to a lot of my fellow Cotati residents, neighbors. Everyone is very excited. I think you did an amazing job of designing this addition to it. You kind of hit very well of making it modern, exciting, vibrant, but also still maintaining the character of Katati and of the Inn of the Beginning. And so
Yeah.
really, like, hats off, you did a great job. Very happy about it. Every single person that I talked to asked about that sign. It is
Same.
it is a very uniquely special part of Katati and of our just kind of community. And so I think that while I absolutely would agree that you'd want to put your own sign where that one is, having it still outside for everyone. Like I said, I drive by it every day. Usually we won't talk about how many times a day. Having it outside is going to simply strengthen your connection with the community and the restaurant's connection and respect and love of the community. And we love right back, so it'll be great. But I know that several of my fellow commissioners feel the same. If you can find a spot not in the back, but that people can see driving by. I don't know what the situation is with the Sanda Lady, if you can put it kind of on the side on there, but figuring something out.
We floated internally, we floated the idea of putting it on the side facing the parking lot. We just thought that it's kind of like lost over there because there is three big trees at the entrance to the parking lot. So there is a sign on the side facing the parking spots. There is an area that it's shown on one of the elevations, I believe, where you can see a secondary sign that we have for ayahuasca above the proposed new location for the restrooms.
It's on page 21 of the packet in the staff report, and then also, yeah, you guys have the bigger one.
We sheet A3.1. I don't know if it fits though. Proportionally wise, I don't know if it works. But yeah, because of the two elements which are also typical elements of this type of Spanish architecture. The sign it goes beyond this. It's this plus more. So it will look crowded over there. I don't know if it I mean, we can try producing elevations with the sign there. We're not opposed to it, but I don't know if it
would actually fit.
If it will actually fit and work.
So you mentioned placing it in the back. I noticed there's some big windows on the back elevation.
Back
Like the back
wall.
of the fence, right?
Yeah.
Or because what I'm envisioning is like I walk into the restaurant, I look out the windows, and then I would see the sign against the back fence. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Exactly. Because you enter through the main alley, the main hallway on the restaurant that we have. And then we have a foldable door type of Nana Cantina wall. So the idea is that you are halfway already and you can see the sign on the background, and we have a planter there. So the idea is that it's surrounded by plants, like a live wall kind of situation.
Okay.
I think it will give it the importance to the sign that it has. Instead of, that's why we didn't want to put it on the parking lot, kind of like abandoned over there, and make it more of a part that it's
like a focal point
and
of the
see
patio.
if, drive people in that want to take pictures with the sign, that a lot of restaurant owners now, they want those type of situations where, people take pictures to promote the, kind of like organically promote the business.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I like the sign. I like the history of it, but I understand, you want to brand the building so people know when they walk up to it, they're walking into ayahuasca and not seeing some other sign. For people who've lived in Katati, they might know the historical significance, but someone visiting from San Francisco for the first time might not know, So I do like the thought of highlighting it on the patio.
And if we put it inside, we can put up like a plaque
Plaque or
description,
something.
like a little,
Yeah.
biography to the sign or, something.
Because donating it to some nonprofit or something, like it's a huge sign. Like I don't think that
It's
would
really,
do it
it's
justice.
really long. It's really,
Like,
really big.
it can't fit in our little historical room here, I assume, right? So like, yeah, I want it, I want it. Yeah, can we put it back here or what?
Right
We got
behind you.
some- we
Like
got
right over
some
there.
Space. So yeah, if it, if the back patio fence is the best place, if it's honored and a focal point, I think that would work for me, at least. I can't speak for others on the commission, of course, but I like that idea.
I'd like to hear from Ed, but I know that I personally wouldn't mind if those elements on the Santa Lady were covered in order for the sign to be there.
There's not enough length to put the sign there. If above the Santa Lady shop? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I was saying
Yeah.
if we approved like covering those elements,
No, that's still longer than.
it's still longer than the
Yeah.
whole building? Doesn't look that way from down below. I guess it's because I'm too far away, right?
I have some ideas.
It's longer. I just checked. Yeah.
And I'm going to disclose that I'm also serve on the Historical Society.
Oh,
First, prior to Friar Tuck's Sweet Lou's Restaurants was there. And what they did, which I thought was respectful to the building, respectful for the sign, is they put the Sweet Lou's Restaurant sign where the current Sunburst is. You can see it in this picture here. So they were able to.
can I approach?
You can have that. So it was able to maintain the integrity of the sign of the building. And why that sign is so important is earlier last year when the sign was taken down they were doing some work on the building. I was on vacation, but two other members of the Historical Society Board, John Allred and John DeLasso, got phone calls about what happened to the sign, why is it missing? And it stirred up a controversy. And I think it was John, if I remember correctly, who found out that it was just taken down to do some other work. And a couple of days later, it went back up. And another thing I want to point out is Fran Fleet, who was the Santa Lady. She was the one that carved that sign. So there's another connection to the importance of the sign on that building. And the musical history of Cotati is probably the second most important part of our history compared to the hexagon shape of our downtown. It's the number one thing that people ask about when they visit the museum. And when we do our walking tours during the summer, that's where most of the conversation takes place, is in front of that building about that building's history. So for the sign to be put behind, out of sight, or around the corner, or come down completely, in my view, it just has a negative impact on the heritage of our community.
Well, now you can have the conversation inside while drinking pisco sours.
And
No, I understand.
what I did, I sent it to Noah and he passed it on to all of you, and I gave a copy to everyone here tonight. Excuse me. One of the projects the museum started working on last year was a QR code that is going to be on all the businesses downtown. So when people, if they don't want to do the walking tour, there will be 2 QR codes on it. One will be what the walking tour is, and the other will be the history of the specific building that's in front of them. So, you look at Cotati, you look at our history, there's a reason we have musical notes on the freeway and the overpass, because music is such an important part of Cotati's history. And it's because of the beginning that we have that reputation. So I would really hate to see that sign disappear.
So question from the pictures that you gave me, was the sun above the the end of the beginning sign, that top part, which is covered here, was this added later when this
No.
business left?
That was always there.
Oh, they
So-
covered the top part.
So he put that over the top of the Sunburst. So that way they're preserved the end of the beginning sign underneath and it's still advertised as a restaurant. And what Friar Tuck's did is they just, as you can see in the other picture, they did their signage along the awning of the lower roof. So I mean, you could actually do something like that, have your bigger sign above where the Sunburst is, and then have an additional
So
signage.
you guys don't mind covering that sunburst?
I'm sorry?
You guys don't have a problem if we cover the top portion of the sign?
No, that part would be okay because it's still, the main part of the sign would still be exposed to the public. Other than that, everybody I've talked to is very excited that the buildings would be brought back to life and that you're coming to town. And yes, those bathrooms that are there right now, if one person could fit in there comfortably, it's amazing.
Yeah.
They're, you
And they
know,
don't work, they don't really used to work. They backed up the sewer all the time. So there was a lot of work. It's part also of the added expenditure for the client was that the infrastructure wasn't really as sound as he thought it was going to be. So there was a lot of work that been done to the site already for, sewer, gas, and all of those utilities that were actually not up to the task of holding this new restaurant, right?
I see that picture that you gave.
While you look at that question, has an assessment been made on the sign to determine whether it could safely be removed or not? Because it
It can be
does.
safely removed. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it probably needs to be removed regardless for a little bit of restoration because it's truly falling apart. I don't know I don't know how much longer it will survive just sitting there on the elements.
lose that to maintain that.
So if you did take it down and move it, would you restore it or, preserve it
Yeah.
as well? Okay.
And there is a possibility that maybe we could do something like the city of Cotati. I mean, the city of Petaluma last year started a sign project to not only preserve but restore historic signs. And they went out and started doing public fundraising to do that restoration work because they recognize the importance of when those signs are gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
One of them that came down when they tore down the Cattleman's restaurant in Petaluma, that was one of the first large neon signs Cattleman's ever did. And they were able to actually find a museum up in Nevada that came down and took the neon tubings down piece by piece, packed it all, and shipped it to Nevada to preserve it because that whole building was being torn down. But they still were able to preserve the sign.
Yeah, this one probably when removed for restoration will have to be taken by boards.
Yeah,
Because it's already-
one of the lower boards is actually separated right
Yeah,
now.
and they're already bowing, due to the elements and all of that.
But otherwise, the bathroom addition and you guys coming to town, I'm very excited about.
I would disagree about being okay with covering the sunburst. I just really like the sunburst. I would rather see the sign remain intact on the side of the building above the restrooms. It looks to me like that pop out is the exact same size
Exactly,
and
yeah.
dimension of the current pop out. I can still see that from the street when I'm walking down. It would still kind of be part of the building and it would fit in, and then you could see the whole thing.
And if I can say something regarding covering the sunburst, what you can see from the previous sign, that's a backlit box sign that is really not pleasant. And our idea is to do a more sophisticated type of halo lit sign. when it comes, that's going to be once we do the sign permit, right? But, just covering it, to be able to cover it, we'll have to get a background and cover that and create a box in front of the sign. So, personally, I'll rather, yes, keep the sign like Kimberly said, that on Miss Moffett, that we keep the sign complete, full.
And just for the sake of argument, is the owner willing to not have an ayahuasca sign on that side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or we can relocate it if needed, but it's not
Yeah.
probably we don't need it. It should be okay.
Are you seeing those, in that image, those redwood trees, are those the ones that are covered? Two of that?
Not completely, but depending on where you are standing. If you're trying across the street
Yeah.
by Remax, I think,
Cover it.
at a certain angle, you don't see it.
Right.
And also, like Mr. Gilardi was saying, is that we know that the sign attracts people. So we want to bring them into the restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
and then they can go look at it and, have lunch, drinks, use it to our benefit if possible.
Do you have any renderings of what that would look like inside the restaurant?
No.
No. Okay. Talking about the addition, I'm looking in the packet at page 20, figure 3. It shows the side of the building there and then the temporary wall. Is that where the bathroom would go, in that corridor there?
That's correct.
Okay. What used to be there, was that just dirt like that?
So I believe it was part of the patio or maybe a planter area.
Yeah, it's just a dirt patch.
Yeah. Okay.
Not really any plants there. Or landscape, significant, it's just
Mhm.
wild grass.
Oh, yeah. That's cool. This might be a question for Noah. Does this, approving this kind of alteration set any precedent for future projects in the historical district of downtown?
I mean, from the staff perspective, the addition is doing exactly what the DSP directs.
Okay.
So from worrying about precedent would be more because the DSP does reference specifically 2-story buildings in this location, in this part of downtown. A project that did not implement directly the
Right.
policy direction would be more, I would say, concerning over precedent setting. This is something that could be pointed to as and then held up as an example of how existing historic buildings can be modified to continue their historic use.
Okay. There's no exceptions being requested
But none
from the
none at all.
plan. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? I mean, do we want to talk more about the sign? Because now would be the time if we wanted to put it into a condition.
Correct. Yeah. So the sign permit will be decided at the staff level.
Mhm.
That's per the policy or of the zoning code. However, if there's direction received from the commission this evening, that will be directed and inform the decision on the sign.
Is this going before council?
It will not. This is the only action needed.
Okay.
If I may say something else, just to help you trigger your imagination, imagine you're on the patio, all new landscape, different type of surfaces on the floor, built-in banquet bench on the back wall with an incorporated planter, the sign behind you, and you can have your birthday, a party, and you take pictures, and now you have pictures with the sign of the inn instead of the sign being out there and never be on a picture unless you take it from across the street. I think it will bring it closer to the community that now they can all gather along the sign more than having up there that, you can even tell the size of the sign, like as you mentioned, because it's all the way up there, but, having it down here and people be able to gather around it, I think it's a good idea for having more interaction with the sign and, posting on pictures and help with the historical community and all that, that now you all can have pictures around the sign. which before was impossible because of where it's located.
Well, along those lines, I was thinking that maybe in the patio, you could actually paint it so that there is the Grateful Dead, there is Janis Joplin, there is images of the people, as opposed to, this is what I'm looking at, right? This
Yes, so
is the one.
exactly.
So I would love to see images of the famous people that played there.
We could do on that subject, I'm just thinking out of my head, what we could do is probably like a Hall of Fame wall, make it that the Hall of Fame wall and make it more like, you know, because it's expensive. We done when designing restaurants. I have hired artists to do murals. They're very expensive. So what I'm thinking, trying to help with the cost, is maybe have, you know, like bigger pictures frame and place on the wall as a Hall of Fame, you know, and you know, with a glass envelope so we can protect it from the elements as well of people, of groups or bands or artists that perform over there, kind of like following your idea.
You could also involve the community, invite them. We have people who are amazing artists that could do the mural for nothing, just to do it. And that could be a way to involve the community as well.
Quick question, murals, do murals need to go through? No? Okay. Then, yeah, we're open to that idea, yeah.
So I'm a stickler on, I don't want to see that sign moved. I don't want to see it go away. So looking at the rendering you have of the sign for the restaurant, would it be possible to offset it and do one on each side of, either do one like here and here, or just have it right above the entrance, above where Friar Tuck's had their sign on the tile roof area, so that way there we don't.
It is possible from the architectural standpoint. I don't think it will work. And also now thinking about functionality, how to mount it and how the water will flow from that Spanish barrel tile needs to go into the next level of Spanish barrel tile to collect the water of the rain. It sounds like a little complicated to achieve, especially because half barrel Spanish tile protrude from the face where they're sitting on top. So we will have to create a structure to push the sign forward so we can allow the roof to function. And we will have to do it for 2 signs. But the sign that we're proposing for ayahuasca is a halo lit sign. So it needs to be at a certain distance from the wall, you know, to be able to make it work.
I'm sorry, did you say it's a lit sign?
Halo lit.
Halo lit?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's when, like, imagine if that sign had a light behind it and then you see a halo around it.
Oh, okay, got it.
I think it's always hard when, you know, there's new things. I see the need for you to brand the building and have the ayahuasca sign where it is. It makes sense. I think that having, you know, a vibrant community and a vibrant downtown area is good for Cotati. It's just kind of like everything that's happened since Galvin's has moved in. Like, it's great. But also, I mean, I'm going to strongly vote for having it on the side of the building, because I want their restaurant to be successful. I want to see our downtown area start attracting people outside of just Cotati. And there's a lot of buzz right now, I feel like, with the restaurants that have been coming in, with, you know, Cotati getting recognized in a couple of magazines about having new eateries and being a kind of a new vibrant downtown area that kind of steps up a little bit from Friar Tucks and Spankies and the 8 Ball.
Sweet,
So.
Sweet Lou's was really good.
So, as sad as it is, and I also agree that it shouldn't be on the patio. As fun as I would probably love to take a selfie with the sign behind me, I do think that that's just part of Katati is being able to see the end at the beginning sign. So I'm gonna strongly advocate for the side of the building.
And
We're open to that one.
my thought is if it's on the side and hidden by trees, it won't be as visible and celebrated as if it were on the patio. Now, granted, I get if it's on the patio, then it's really you only get to experience it if you're at the restaurant. So I can see why we would want it to be more publicly visible.
Can your ayahuasca sign on the front be where the sandal lady is? Above that, on that smaller building. And people are going to know where you are. They are. They're going to see you're open. They're going to know who you are. You have this big sign on the side above the new bathroom. I'm leaning toward with Ed to keep the sign and figure out a way to have both there. I don't know how it's going to work, but it's important historically. It's for everybody. I mean, it's just as much for the business, the new business, as for the history because of the history.
Yeah, but that's why we're advocating to keep it and restore it. And
Yes,
it doesn't have to go in the patio, but like I'd say, that's kind of like the place where the sign for the business that it's there supposed to go, right? That's why we have that location for our sign. Believe me, I wish with all my heart that the sign was at the different location already, and it wasn't taking the prime spot for the building. But we would like to see if there is that we can come to a different resolution where we keep the sign, we restore it, and we locate it in any of the locations that we mentioned, which could be the side or the back of on the patio, and see
So Noah, there's consensus, obviously, that we love the restaurant coming. We all approve of the need and the design of the new bathrooms, and the sign is kind of like a separate topic. Is it possible to split this to one vote for the bathrooms and that part of the project, and then ask that new ideas be brought back, incorporating the end sign with signage for the building?
So, yes, we can. Well, so what's before the commission is design review for the bathroom. So the sign isn't before the commission this evening. However, this is an opportunity to provide input, and we know it's a critical step for the community. The zoning code does allow the director to elevate director level decisions to the planning commission for that very reason. And so we could bring the sign permit back to the commission as something that's as a way to allow the design review to move forward, and then allow the decision on the sign to be more at a community level with more input provided from the commission on the actual decision. But I think it would be best if as much direction or flexibility, where there is flexibility, could be provided to the applicant tonight to allow that decision to be informed. And then the other question staff has is, because Katati hasn't taken the step to formally designate its historic structures and resources, I did put the question to the city attorney as to like kind of where our rights are as the city versus their rights as the applicant, and we weren't able to get a full response in time for the meeting tonight, but that could, that response could be brought back as a part of the signed decision.
Yeah, my thought in asking that is that last year when the sign did come down for a few days and we received a lot of comments about, what happened to it. I think it's important that it come back to allow more community input on it because it's an iconic part of our community.
And that would also allow the applicant some time to come up with some renderings and give us some, okay, here's what it looked like here, here's what it looked like there. And we could have more than just our imaginations to guide us. I like that idea, Ed. That's a good compromise. Because we could talk about this for probably a couple more hours, huh?
Would that increase the fee that the applicant needs to pay for the permit?
I was just thinking staff would advocate for that process to only cost the typical sign permit process because that's being requested. It's not the applicant who's requesting to go above and beyond. And so it's my goal that that would not be the case. I'd have to discuss with the city manager, but it seems like it would be a good use of city resources to have that decision made at a bigger level. And I believe, now that I'm saying it, I believe if the director chooses to elevate it for the community benefit, it would not affect the costs put down on the applicant.
Yeah, I would advocate for that as well. I know how expensive it can be to start a business, and that's why a lot of businesses don't get started. And so, I don't want to make the process more burdensome and costly than it already is for the applicant. I think we want them here. We want them to open. We want you guys to do everything you're doing. So we're not trying to create more obstacles and challenges. But, I think as you've seen, this is a very important piece of Cotati. And I agree with it that, additional time and opportunity to look at it from different perspectives would be helpful for me as well. Even seeing it in the back, in the back patio, if you could come up with some concepts there too, I think that could be helpful. And then possibly allowing the community to provide additional input. Yeah, so procedurally, Noah, could you maybe give me some direction on
Yeah,
that?
so I think the commission could just act on the design review and then request that the sign be brought back as a commission level decision. And we can provide that direction in the conditions of approval.
Okay. And how, as the applicant, are you the owners or are you the applicant?
Part family, the owner son.
Okay. How do you guys feel about that process?
Yeah, it works for us. I just want to talking about, fees and all of that. Even though, thank you for the fees situation, but still, it's all the soft costs of producing renderings, being here, and all that. I just want you to understand that shows the commitment of the client to work with you guys and the residents of Cotati to try to come to an amicable resolution. That ideally that whatever the solution that we can as a group come up with is not substantially more expensive than at costs than the cost that it will be for us to locate the sign on one of the two proposed locations that we have right now, right? Unless we can come up with something that's even, more cost effective.
So question, if say hypothetically, we decided to keep the sign where it is, would it not be restored in that instance? Or is that something?
I don't believe the city has the right to force the applicant to restore the sign.
Okay,
I don't believe that right exists sitting here today.
okay.
Regarding size, location, design, signs are free speech.
Mhm.
There's a lot of law about signs. We want to have an informed conversation when we bring that back to tell the planning commission and the community members where we can and can't influence this decision, because as we know, free speech is a federally protected right in our country. And so it's very important. And so we need to have a thoughtful decision about it and well informed.
Okay. And they are owners of the building. It's not like it's Katati property and they're just leasing it. Like they own the
Absolutely. This is
building,
100%
so-
private
yeah,
property.
Okay.
And I will say they allow their private property to be utilized for public parking and have been very easy to work with through the negotiations on allowing that to continue, which not all the property owners involved have been as amicable to that.
Mhm.
In making a decision for the design review, are we making decisions about colors?
Well, generally, it's been staff's perspective not to regulate color because
Okay.
you ask for 5 opinions on color and you'll get generally 5 different
Okay,
answers.
so I'm
But-
just
but-
I'm just asking.
But if you have some,
Oh, this looks mighty purple, and that's not purple?
I believe the
Is-
color's blackberry.
Is that what it is? Is it purple?
No.
No? Is it gray? I don't know what it is.
What color you want it to be?
I want it to be a mural. I want it to be a mural. So
So
That's the color I
So
want.
the exterior, where the restaurants addition, which is what's in discussion right now,
yes.
it's charcoal, kind of like color, like a dark charcoal color. To contrast with and not take from the historic architecture. And we're not trying to replicate it because it would be impossible. So we're, trying to take our distance from that and exactly as Noah explained it. But yeah, it's a charcoal.
Okay, thank you. But that's not purple there too? Looks
Yeah.
like
I
purple.
think you need a new printer.
so the city printed these, the applicant did not, so.
Yeah, no,
Okay, I'm just trying to find out what the colors are.
Yeah, it references like on this page, I said blackberry because it calls up Benjamin Moore Blackberry is the siding, and then I see Benjamin Moore Forest Valley Green as well in Mountain Peak White.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, no, it's a printer. It's a printer. I can show you here on my screen if you want.
I have a kind of related question, but also kind of not related. When you say the Katati Cabaret was there, was it ever in another location or was it always in the beginning?
It did a partnership. It did a partnership at the end of the beginning,
Uh-huh.
and then it moved over to where the synagogue is. now,
Okay.
Which originally was the Katati Women's Club.
Okay. And the reason I ask is because we're talking about famous people that were at the end of the beginning, and I don't know how many people know this, but the rapper Tupac Shakur's first manager lived in Rohnert Park. And like some of his first like shows or performances were at the Katati Cabaret. So I was like, oh, maybe that was in the beginning, but it
No,
was
it would've
probably
been-
most likely that one if
yeah.
it was in the 90s. Okay, so not a
Yeah.
famous person that
No.
played there.
Neil Young, Grateful Dead,
Yeah.
Charlie Daniels.
They're
Janis
verified.
Joplin, New Riders of the Purple Sage.
Ah.
There's, all those classics.
Uh-huh. Cool. Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like an amazing place. So yeah, as much as we can do to preserve it, I think is definitely in the best interest of Katati, of course, balancing the needs of the new owner. So, yeah.
And it's the owner at the other locations advocates also for live music and all of that. So at some point in the next phase, there is talks with the client to at some point bring live music to this location.
Will there be space for that, like on the patio?
That's why it's going to be on this different phase. But yeah, I mean, when we planned the overall design, we took into account that might be a situation. And yes, like he's going to, it will be a different process, right? Like, but that's a conversation that we had with the client
Mhm.
to see if, some of that, knowing the importance, as Mr. Ilardi was mentioning, of live music, the relationship between that building and live music, it's been, known to us by plenty of people. So, and, we did our research on all newspapers and articles, blogs, we can see it. So yeah, it's been conversation at some point to do that.
How much, as the architect, do you have a rough idea of how much additional cost would go into producing these renderings and these, these concepts that we're asking for?
How many are we doing? We're doing the one on the side, the one on the back.
Well, I think the front of the building concepts, preserving the existing sign, and then we really know what it would look like if it was moved around the corner. So we really don't need a drawing of that, do we? If it was on the side of the building?
I'd like to see that, just so we
I
can get an
mean,
idea of perspective, like how much space it takes up.
And you're sure even if you like cover those two elements on Santa Lady that it wouldn't fit?
It's too long.
Too long.
I think it will overhang on the sides.
Yeah, hang over the
Oh.
sides.
Okay, got it.
It's a much longer sign than you realize.
I
until you
pulled it up
s-
on
yeah,
Google
then
Maps. It
look at
really
it.
is. I know. I,
But we're probably talking
My-
about $2,500 to $6,500.
my hesitancy is that we're kind of belaboring it when I don't necessarily think that we're going to get the desired result beyond what's being offered right now. And I do worry
Not
kind
Until
of.
we see.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to the owners in the sense of the cost,
Mhm.
and that I'm a small business owner and I know how challenging it can be and how expensive it can be. And so, yeah, I'm really hesitant to increase the cost additionally than what we've already required you to do
And
to this point.
PG&E has been brutal with our costs.
Yeah.
They want us to redo the entire downtown, sort of that. And I told her like, hey, you need to come because I think you're mistaken. And then they sent somebody and we did a field survey and yeah, we didn't have to destroy the entire downtown that they want us to.
Yeah.
Because if not, we will have abandoned the project if that never came to fruition. So that was a big hold on our plans. That's why the project prolonged for so long,
Mm-hmm.
so, but yeah. And then
And every
all
month.
the structure was rotten and the concrete and foundation.
Right.
you
And
know.
even just delaying the decision another month or so is a cost in and of itself to the owner.
My concern is for the residents of this town. And I think it is going to be a wonderful place for ayahuasca to be in Cotati. It's a gift that ayahuasca gets to be in Cotati and gets to have this building. The residents of this town love this sign, and to me, there's other ways to try to assist with costs. So like Ed was saying, that perhaps we can raise money to rehabilitate the sign. There's ways to help. There's ways that the community wants to be involved and participate in this dream happening. But to me, my thought is always with the residents. I'm sorry, I'm not with the business owner, and I probably can't even afford to eat there, actually. So, it's going to be out of my price range. That's what I'm seeing, unless one of my fellow commissioners takes me out to keep my mouth shut, but I can't be bought.
I'll take you out.
So I'm not going to be bought, and it's about the residents for me always. So it matters, and I don't believe that it's going to break the bank for the business. So, yeah, this is the way it's going to be.
Sorry?
Family-owned business.
And I don't see, I know you brought up about delaying, but with all the work they have to do, the sign is such a small portion. I don't think that would delay the overall process of the project. And I can't speak for the rest of my board members on the Historical Society, but we do restoration work. We help fund restoration work. And so that might be something that I can talk to our board about and say, hey, this is important and we should contribute to the restoration of that sign. If that's something, that would be of interest to you, and there might be other businesses or individuals in the community who also might be willing, like the Katati Accordion Festival. I mean, Scott, who's the executive director, was part owner of the Inn of the Beginning back then before they moved it over to the cabaret. So there are individuals in the community that we could approach for the restoration of that sign. I think that's a possibility, which would help, with some of the costs. But for me, that's how important that sign is. It's kind of like the heart of our community.
Shall we make
I think the owner wants to say a few words, if that's okay with you guys.
Please.
Good evening, guys. How's it going?
Hi.
My name is Luigi, and I'm here on behalf of my family and our restaurant, Ayahuasca. My father, who is the owner, was unfortunately not able to make it tonight due to a family emergency. But even though he's not here, I am deeply involved in the day-to-day operations and management of the restaurant. And family has been at the center of it the whole time. We opened in 2019, and it's pretty difficult to go to one of our restaurants and not find one of us there. So I'm either in Petaluma, I'm in Novato. You can talk to our general manager, Katrina. Really, family is at the root of what we do, and it's really important to us. Our intentions with this project are simple. We really want to care for the building and respect its history. And obviously, we understand how much it means to the community itself. And we want to create a space that serves the community long term, obviously, because, as much as it was previous in its previous forms, we want to not only improve, but make a place that can serve the community. This investment, it's a very big investment for our family, and it's one that's very important to us. So obviously, I know this is a big decision, not only for us, but for you guys. And I appreciate your guys' time and any consideration that you guys do take in this matter. I want to thank city staff and Noah in particular for all the help that he's been giving us. He's been amazing throughout the process, and thank you guys for your time and consideration. That's pretty much it. I just wanted to say something because my dad wasn't able to be here. But yeah. Thank you guys.
So
Appreciate it.
thank you for making an investment in our community. We appreciate that.
Question, do you have an estimated date of when you're going to be opening, sign issues aside?
Well, a big decision or factory will be today's decision regarding the restrooms.
Okay. So hypothetically, if we approve the restrooms,
Let's say today gets approved, we get probably, and P&E to come and do the work they need to do. But let's say P&E comes tomorrow to do what they're supposed to do, probably from that date, 4 or 5 months.
okay. So it's still a ways out.
Can I make a motion to approve this preliminary and final design review to allow construction of a 400 square foot addition and renovation of the structure and patio at 8201 Old Redwood Highway, and finding the infill development project consistent with the Katati General Plan, the Downtown Specific Plan, and the associated environmental impact report, and exempt from further environmental review under CEQA guidelines.
I second.
All right. Carla?
Clarification, are we doing of two separate?
Yeah, and
Thank you.
separate the signs.
So the motion is approve the bathrooms and have a second design review meeting for the sign permit?
Directing staff to bring this sign permit to the commission
Yes.
for review.
Okay.
You still a second?
So seconded.
All right, Carla?
Commissioner Sparks,
Aye.
Commissioner Berman,
Yes.
Commissioner Moffett,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gilardi,
Yes.
Chair Long.
Yes. All right, motion passes. And let's,
Bathrooms are a go.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know you had existing restaurants in Petaluma, Nevada, so I'll go check them out. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Various locations actually at the Hilltop in Nevada, which is actually also a big part of Nevada's history.
It is very important to us to keep historical aspects of our restaurants if they have them, because Hilltop was actually built at the Farmhouse in 1892.
Oh.
So it's even got more historical significance. Not saying that the sign is not, it is definitely historical significance for sure, but with Hilltop, like, I've been in that building. I was
Oh,
looking at it.
sorry, should she come to the mic so people can hear?
Oh,
Oh.
it's just that it's been around,
Mm-hmm.
the building, there's been many different things, and we definitely take that into
Mm-hmm.
consideration. We've worked on that as well.
Just want to reiterate what Luigi said. Noah been MVP, great person to work with, very helpful, very concerned too. He's been all the way. Thank you guys, I appreciate it. And then I guess we'll get, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're looking forward to opening night.
Yeah,
Okay.
when the weather warms up finally.
So moving on to the next item on the agenda, workshop on potential code amendments related to food and outdoor businesses.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Long and members of the commission. My name is Autumn Buss. I'm an associate planner with the city. And tonight we have a workshop for you, which means no action, but discussion and input on potential zoning code update for food and mobile businesses. Next slide, please. So my report is going to touch on the topics of sidewalk vendors, food trucks, micro enterprise home kitchen operations, which are also known as MICOs, thankfully, because that's a mouthful, parklets, and outdoor dining. And as you know, these types of food-related and mobile, excuse me, businesses present both opportunities and challenges for a city. We're going to be presenting a number of different options for the potential regulation of these kinds of businesses, and with the aim to manage potential impacts from them onto the community, but also with an eye toward promoting economic development as part of the package. We're hoping, as I said, that you will provide input on potential standards, and those would go into eventually a zoning code update ordinance. We are planning on also having a workshop with the City Council next week at their meeting on the 27th. And then with that input from you and the council, staff would then go work on the draft ordinance, and then we would have public hearings before the commission and the council at a future date. Next slide, please. So starting with sidewalk vendors, and you may recall if you were on the Planning Commission at the time a year ago, we had an information item, which was an update on where we stand with city and state laws that relate to all of these types of food-related businesses. And we talked about sidewalk vendors. We don't have a lot of control over what sidewalk vendors can do and where they can go. The state law allows mobile vending broadly on sidewalks, on public sidewalks, and in public parks. And those can be vendors of both food and merchandise. The state law stipulates that they be non-motorized conveyances, so carts, wagons, the things you see, the bicycle with the cart on the front. They could also be, sidewalk vendors can also be vending from their person, so just carrying something that they're selling. They may be roaming or stationary. Both types of vendors are protected by the state law. And adjacent property owners do not need to give their permission for a vendor to be out front of their business or in proximity to their business. So against that backdrop, there's very little that regulation that is allowed. We are not required by state law to adopt an ordinance that regulates state vendors or sidewalk vendors, but if we do get a little bit more latitude for some additional regulation, as in time, place, and manner of vending. And we're also able to enforce those regulations and levy fines, which is not something that we could do if we don't adopt an ordinance. So it makes a lot of sense to codify some regulations related to sidewalk vendors within what state law allows us to do. Next slide, please. So here's some potential standards that we'd like your feedback on that could be incorporated into an ordinance. Obviously, with all businesses, we prefer that they have a business license, a city business license. If they are selling food, they are also required actually to have, the state law stipulates this, that they're required to have a health permit from the county. If they're selling merchandise, part of our ordinance requirement would be a state seller's permit. That's actually not part of the state law, but we can make it a requirement with our ordinance. We can set certain limited locational standards. We can require that sidewalk vendors that are acting underneath the state law remain only on the public sidewalk or on pathways within public parks. And this is not to be confused with someone who is setting up a food cart as part of their outdoor dining on private property, or some kind of a limited food preparation, because that is actually allowed. For instance, as Cafe Salsa has food preparation out front in their sanctioned outdoor dining area. This is different from sidewalk vending or sidewalk food preparation. We can require that sidewalk vendors not block sidewalks, that they maintain a certain distance for pedestrian travel, for accessibility. We can state certain distances that need to be maintained from street furniture, from intersections, events like the farmers market that are going on in La Plaza. Or other public parks. We can maintain a certain distance from building entrances, vendors, so that they're not clustered too close together. We are allowed to prohibit stationary vendors in the RR and RVL zone. So those are our two residential only zones. The state law allows us to limit stationary vendors. And so a stationary vendor is a vendor that's stationary. They're not moving. The state law doesn't very clearly define roaming versus stationary. Like, at what point does a roaming vendor become stationary? But it does outline that there's two classes of vendors. So we can say we don't want a vendor who sets up and never goes anywhere within our residential only zones. With roaming vendors, we don't have that kind of latitude. We can't require them to remain in certain areas of the city and avoid other areas. Next slide, please. We can also set certain operating standards as long as they're not overly onerous, and they can be, we can make findings that they support the health, safety, and welfare of the community. For instance, we can set operating hours if they're not overly different from other businesses, particularly in commercial areas. So for instance, we might consider a limitation that vendors in residential zones operate only between 8 in the morning and 30 minutes before sunset. In other zones, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. is our typical commercial business operating hours. So that might be, what we would want to set for sidewalk vendors as well. We can require that the space that they occupy is not overly large. So a standard that, we've been thinking about is to limit to 25 square feet, the area that a sidewalk vendor can occupy. We can require that they clean up litter in their vicinity that's related to their operation, clean up any spills that might occur, keep things from going into the storm drains. We can enforce odor and noise and nuisance performance standards that exist within our code that are applied to any kind of land use. We can require that stationary vendors have access to a restroom if they're in place for more than 1 hour. And that's actually, we can put that in our ordinance. That is also a requirement of the health department. So any vendor with a health permit that's selling food, they actually have that requirement as well. We can require that roaming vendors stop only to conduct sales and then move on to another location. Signage limitations are also something, that we may want to put in place specifically to state that the signage be related only to that particular business that is the sidewalk vendor, not advertising some other business or services or things that aren't physically there to be sold at the time. No flashing signs, no signs that are not physically attached to the vending operation. We can also limit outdoor dining and restrict it or allow some small amount of outdoor dining associated with a sidewalk vendor. And then finally, I want to say that related to sidewalk vendors, the state law allows us to require a sidewalk vending permit, and some cities do that. Our take at this point is that we have relatively few sidewalk vendors that have shown up in Cotati, and the amount of administrative oversight that would go into a sidewalk vending permit program would actually offset the benefit that we might get at this point. At the point that there become more vendors, if there are in the future, that it might be worth considering adding that requirement. But at this point, to adopt an ordinance with fairly clear standards and then pursue enforcement to those that don't toe the line seems like it would be the more efficient way to go. So that is what I have to say on sidewalk vendors. And I just wanted to actually check in with the commission and see, because this is a lot of information and related, but still disparate topics. I'm wondering if you want to have some discussion and give me feedback on sidewalk vendors now before I launch into the next topic area.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Access to restroom, what are we saying? What does that mean?
So that would be written permission, if we requested to see the permission, from a nearby property owner with a bathroom that vendor has access to use that bathroom.
So it's about the vendor having access, not the person purchasing.
Not the customers, my
Right.
understanding.
Okay.
Yeah. And that means, hand washing facilities. If they are selling food, then that is part of the health permit requirement, and we would not need to police that. We could observe whether it's happening or not, and if there's a problem, we could report it to the health department. But it wouldn't, if it's not food, then it would be more that the city would really need to be enforcing that and policing that.
Can we require it if it's selling food? Because I know the health department is pretty overworked as it is, so their policing capacity's pretty
Yeah.
stretched. So if we, instead of referring it to them, could we enforce it on our own?
Yes. Yeah,
Well-
if it's in our ordinance.
And the thing I would add is, things in the ordinance is different than staff capacity to enforce the ordinance. And
Mhm.
so just as the commission considers these items, definitely think about enforceability of the regulations and how that would be
Right.
envisioned to be done. As we get into these topics, enforceability is really going to be split across Public Works, Police Department, or Community Development Department, depending on what topic it is and what time of enforcement is and all that. And so I would just encourage the commission to be thoughtful about, as they direct things they want to see in an ordinance, be thoughtful about how the enforcement mechanisms would be implemented.
Imagine it would be for really bad actors, right? You know, like one-off violations probably aren't going to crack, bring down throw the book at them. But if there's a really bad actor that continues to be a bad actor, then it gives us the ability to do things.
That's also a good perspective to have, is that sometimes it's important to have the rule written, even if it's not often enforced, but so that way you have the ability to deal with the bad actors.
But I wouldn't want to look like we're only enforcing it with some folks and not with others.
That is correct.
Right. I want to add that sort of this outline has been, and the concepts have been vetted by the police department and Public Works with the specific, question to them. How do you feel about this? Because you would be stuck enforcing it. And they didn't call that out, but it's definitely an issue. I also want to note, and this relates to the other topics that are going to come up too, is that the county has convened a working group of the local jurisdiction staff to talk specifically about food vendors. And we meet every other week. And most of it is actually sidewalk vendors. I think they convened it to talk about Miko's originally, but all the discussion has been on sidewalk vendors because it turns out there aren't that many Miko's. And so they actually, apparently at this time, there are health department staff who will go out and engage with sidewalk vendors who do not appear to be following the requirements, at least as far as getting their health permits. So right now they actually are dedicating some staff time to that. But again, it seems like it's not a major issue for the county right now. I mean, there's some problems, but it's not demanding a large amount of their enforcement time.
Well, the only sidewalk vendors that I've seen in Cotati is a hot dog salesman in front of the bar there, the 8 Ball. And what did I see somewhere that we need 4 feet access on the sidewalk to get by the vendor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's an accessibility standard.
Exactly. And I don't think that
that we
there
use
is
for other
4 feet.
things.
There is not
Yeah.
4 feet access when they're in front of the 8 Ball right there.
So one of the benefits of having an ordinance the staff plans to create a handout and then make sure that all mobile vendors are informed of the regulations, because some of them they're just not aware. And so that's the first step, to making sure everybody knows the rules. And then folks who choose to violate them, then we can kind of step up enforcement effort. And the idea is it will be a graduated thing and an education period and all of that.
I was going to say that last summer there was a food vendor on the sidewalk by Walgreens, and you actually had to leave the sidewalk to walk around them. And so I know there's the 4 feet, but is it because, we don't have 4 foot? So could it be a percentage to leave I mean, because you have to have handicap access, but.
So that's 4 feet. That's just required. That dimension of 4 feet is required in the ADA law. And so in that situation, what that means is that the way that vendor set up does not work for maintaining accessibility on the sidewalk. They'd have to modify their operation in some way.
And then I know on the west side of the freeway by the park and ride where Johnny's Java is, there's been a food truck parked there on the street. So currently, is he out of compliance, or do we have something that governs?
That's a really good question. That's a gray area for us right now. And I'm actually going to go into food trucks later because the rules associated with those are different, at least as far as what the state law requires or doesn't require and how we treat them. So with the sidewalk vendors, we're really talking about, really small scale, non-motorized. So food trucks are really a different animal. And they certainly should not be operating on the sidewalk.
But I will say use of the public right of way without permission is not allowed.
I had a question about the not on private property. What if it has the property owner's permission? So say it's, Walgreens is like, hey, you can't manage to fit on the sidewalk. You can just come onto our little dirt area of our property and sell from there.
All right. So that would be a separate part of our code. So this really is relating to public sidewalks and reaction to the state law and what it's making us allow. So currently food carts or food preparation would fall under outdoor dining. So, when restaurants have, like, for a while, Mambo's set up a table out front selling tamales. We viewed that as part of their outdoor dining. And I think they actually have a private property strip out in the front. I don't know that they actually have a little area in front that's not public sidewalk. So we would view that as part of outdoor dining. So it would be permitted, and outdoor dining is generally permitted for any restaurant, as long as the restaurant itself is permitted. The outdoor dining can be by right, except in certain situations, which I'm going to address later.
And I would add, to me, allowing vending from private property is an option to relieve some of the impacts as identified with sidewalks being blocked. And so I think the Walgreens example is actually perfect, where a mobile vendor in front of Walgreens on that sidewalk could create some conflict because the sidewalk's not very wide in that location. Whereas if they could get permission to operate from private property directly adjacent to the sidewalk, it's operationally the exact same thing from their standpoint and from the customer standpoint, but it also provides that circulation element. So if the commission is open to mechanisms to allowing that, that's an important thing for us to hear, so we could write the ordinance in a way that, because as Autumn's talking about, we've kind of put it into silos, but there are opportunities for those things to kind of cross over, and there's kind of overlap in some areas. And so if there's, we do appreciate the input on that to allow us to more thoughtfully draft the regulations.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that, the 8 Ball probably likes the hot dog guy out front, right? Like, they're probably like, yeah, you can use our restroom whenever you want. And if he's blocking the sidewalk too much, of saying, it's okay, you can stand in our planter and bring your thing back a little bit. And so, I mean, personally, I would just say not on private property without the permission of the owner or resident. I don't know how
Yeah, I
that
mean,
would be done.
If that's the alternative to them physically blocking the sidewalk, I would say that would be a good compromise, because having people walk in the street to get past the sidewalk vendor, that's not okay.
And Mambo's had a huge sign that they parked right in the middle of the ADA access from the street. So the signage, if there's going to be this huge sign, that's not the same as selling tamales. I mean, the sign was bigger than the operation.
I also wonder about the roaming vendors where it says stop only for sales, then move to a new location. If that, I mean, I just see people like, you can't stop at all. I just see that could be an area where certain people might be harassed more than others. It just like what is a roaming, like the fact that you're a roaming vendor and can't stop for an hour in front of a fairly busy area and wait for sales, it seems problematic to me.
It's also
It's-
very specific. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's also very specific. It says after finishing a sale, they must move at least 200 feet before stopping again, and they must not return to the same location for at least 6 hours. Like, that seems really, A, hard to enforce, and B, like, if I'm a vendor, I mean, I don't have a good sense of distance, so I don't know what 200 feet would look like. But like, if I get another sale in 20 yards, then I would want to stop for that.
It's
Yes.
that guy in the trench coat that, opens it up. You want to buy sunglasses?
So that level of specificity, that is typically what we put into ordinances, you know, with these kinds of standards. That was specifically from the police chief.
Oh.
So,
okay.
but that was in response to my question to him, how, because at first I said, well, what if we made them move 20 feet? And he said, oh, no. So, you know, I think that getting some feedback on that point is good to hear, you know, because ultimately, you know, our policymakers make the policies. You know, his concern, I think, is that, you know, imagine you're a business that has one of these vendors out in front, or you're a resident who has a vendor out in front. How long do you want that vendor to be out there? Because we can't limit where roaming vendors go within the city, as long as they're on a public sidewalk. So, you know, the idea is to provide the opportunity, because that's where the state is coming from with this, is economic opportunity, with making sure that the impacts to the community are reduced to the extent that we can. So it is good for discussion.
Yeah. There's also that one I've seen selling tacos over by Cotati Market on the side there. They set up at night sometimes. Have we, between the flowers, the hot dog, and a couple other ones, has there been any complaints from the public?
We got a lot of complaints about the one at Walgreens. A lot, I would say, several. We got numerous complaints when they were setting up regularly.
Mm-hmm. Was that on Old Redwood on the sidewalk right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't even aware about the one at Cotati Market until a different commissioner told me about them.
So I haven't seen him for a while now, but is our flower guy still set up? And he's been grandfathered in.
No. So
He
there,
is not
these
grandfathered.
I am not aware of any legal reason why these regulations will not also apply to someone operating such as the flower guy.
He wouldn't be in compliance with them.
We don't have any regulations currently.
These ones that are being proposed, though, would he not be in compliance?
Well, my understanding is he operates from the right of way. Similar
From the
to
road.
the person selling food over from the right of way on the west side of town. From a vehicle parked in the right of way. So just, I don't believe there is any kind of, you know, you've been here before the rules, so you're allowed to continue. I don't believe that will apply in the instance of using the right of way and for future sales. So just something to bring up, and it could be brought up as a general direction of, we appreciate that type of vending. So write regulations that could address that appreciation or respond to that appreciation.
Yeah, when Ryan brought up about having things put into regulation, and I know, you know, we're a small community, so how do you enforce all those regulations? At the same time, I kind of look at them, they're also a deterrent. And I would rather have them being as a deterrent. Yeah, maybe we might not have the personnel to go out and do the enforcement, but if it's there and we have to do the enforcement, then we've covered our backs.
So just the one in front of Walgreens is the only one that's received complaints?
I don't want to say that's the only one. That's the one that I received the most complaints about. There was also someone set up in the parking lot of the shopping center on Commerce, where the barbershop is. I think there was a burger set up there, burger stand set up there for a while, and I got a complaint about that. Two, I think, from the same person, but.
Okay. Do you know what the nature of that complaint was?
I mean,
Sorry to get too specific, but.
I actually think they were competitors.
Yeah.
So, but the reason, you know what I'm saying, like,
There's a burger joint.
once you have the rule, the reason why someone's asking you to enforce it is somewhat irrelevant, right? If the rule's there, the
Right.
rule's there.
Right.
But I will say, from the staff perspective, we do use, like in code enforcement, we have a hierarchy because we have limited resources, we have a hierarchy of how we respond to complaints. I mean, so something that's a life safety issue is a number one priority.
Mhm.
Someone who, like an unfair business practice, like doing work without permits, that's a secondary priority, and then they kind of go down from there. But
You talked about providing handouts to the operators that could help them come into compliance. Would you be able to provide those in English and Spanish?
100%.
I know I would be worried about anything that jeopardized flowers, not to reason why. Mostly because I'd rather enjoy when my spouse comes home with flowers. Yeah. It's nice. He's
So-
been there forever. He's literally listed in the Cotati history book. I mean, like, our community, someone saw that his sign was getting old and like made him a brand new sign, completely identical to the other one, just out of the kindness of their heart, because he's a staple in our community. And he's kind of a nice guy.
He's a Dodger fan.
Oh, well. All right, never mind. Go ahead and permit him out of here.
He's from LA, right? I read an article. He was like an actor or something.
Yeah, yeah, he's got quite a long and colorful history, and I would hate to do something that would discourage him. I mean, he unfortunately is getting up there in years. Let's say not say elderly, but it's, so how much longer will he be around to do that? I don't know, but I would hate to have any type of policy have a negative impact on him.
But would that be considered a sidewalk vendor, or like where would that fall in this workshop? Would that be like mobile vendor? Let's.
It doesn't actually, but that doesn't mean that it can't be, we can't add that into our calculus because my take from the state law is that it really is talking about somebody who is non-motorized and is on the sidewalk. So he's not doing that. Sales from the public right of way are not allowed. So we would actually need to somehow, write that in as something that could happen from the roadway, from a parked vehicle. We'll talk about food trucks in a few minutes. Same thing right now. Somebody can't actually park their food truck on the road on this, in a parking space and vend from it as a matter of course. So we do have the fellow over, on the other side of the freeway. He is working with, he has the blessing of the property owner adjacent. His business license uses that address. But, food trucks need to not be operating from the public right away as things are right now. And that would include any other vendor as well. If the city wants to look at some way to, to write up some standards that would allow that, that's something that we can look into.
Okay.
So how would this impact, like over in Lowe's parking lot? There's those guys that are selling cases of strawberries and oranges and pineapples and all kinds of stuff like that. How would this impact them?
So, so if they're on private property at this point, this ordinance would not address that, same as what we were just talking about, the idea of, a business being able to allow a vendor to invite them to be on their private property and operating, we need to come up with some standards to address that if we want to allow that. And it sounds like there's some interest in looking at that. I don't know if those folks are there with Lowe's permission or not, or if they're on the sidewalk. If they are on the sidewalk, then they are protected by the state law. We are considering a standard that would require that the goods and the vendor and their vendor's operation would be off the ground for health and safety reasons. So that might be an issue because I know often they're seated on the ground with their boxes of fruit on the ground. Whether the health department actually allows that, I don't know. But that would be something that, we would have to, get some more input from the health department on. right now, I think they're allowed by state law if they're on the sidewalk,
They're
yeah.
they're in the parking lot and they're usually,
Okay.
their cases of merchandise are just sitting on the ground and
Ah.
they walk around and peddle them.
Right. So we're also, and this is what I've seen in some of the other cities that have adopted sidewalk vending ordinances, is that they do require that vendors not approach passersby to sell things to them, and that they not, that they not actually attempt to solicit sales of passersby, and that, that they wait to be approached for sale. So,
I will add, I think it's a benefit and kind of in keeping with the direction we've gone to allow vending of goods maybe not available at the primary business on site by kind of secondary folks who have permission of the property owner or the business owner. And to me, as Autumn mentioned, I don't know if those folks have permission of Lowe's, but I do know if Lowe's didn't want them there, there's mechanisms for Lowe's to have them move on, as because you don't have to allow trespassing. So to me, it seems that Lowe's doesn't have a problem with them, and as long as those vendors aren't causing problems to community members or customers, it's a benefit, right? I mean, you're able to get two things from one location. It's also kind of in keeping with some of the farm stand ideas that we've had with people being able to sell food or make it easier to get food. So to me, it would be a benefit, but these are the types of things that we'd like to hear from the commission on and then the city council, and then we can draft regulations around that direction.
yeah, can I just,
Another thing that happened, not this holiday, but the previous holiday, and I was kind of surprised by, there was a woman walking around the Lowe's parking lot, and she was handing out flyers for donations to a nonprofit. And I'm like, and with QR codes these days and Venmo, people can collect, but I was just kind of surprised by that. That just kind of seemed weird.
The county, so county environmental health is really big on outreach and public education. And so, they have materials and they work to educate the public about buying from permitted vendors rather than unpermitted vendors because of the health and safety issues. And so, that's something that I think we would want to do as well, as we have a more robust sidewalk vending regulatory framework in place. We can do more outreach as well and educate the public about the need to check, because, they should have their permit visible. And it's important that, that people avoid the unpermitted vendors because of the health and safety issues. I was surprised to learn also that some of the folks that are out selling fruit and flowers, apparently there's a chance that there's also a connection with human trafficking. And I was astounded, but there are apparently large outfits coming from the Central Valley. Well, they will set folks up and say, this is your quota to sell these items. And so that's another reason to be, checking on that health permit, because at least that's an additional sort of vetting process that needs to happen, for these sort of food vendors.
I'm concerned about sign size.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm concerned about signs. Even our businesses, our brick and mortar businesses are a little out of control with signs, and there is no enforcement. So, yeah,
We do some enforcement.
self-enforcement,
We do some.
some.
Yeah.
Well, can I go and talk to them? The brick and mortars?
As a citizen, you can absolutely do that. We can also respond to complaints.
Okay. Well, some employees, some owners of the businesses are parking. Co-housing has 12 parking places. They're taking a parking place and they're putting their sign in front of their vehicle in the street. In the street. right in front of their vehicle. So, and it's 2-hour parking. They're parking for 8 hours. So,
Yeah, definitely call on those or file a complaint.
okay, well, I'll talk to them and tell them.
Going back to the health permit, right, or the health, like hand washing, right? And how that's currently enforced by the county, but we talked about writing it in our ordinance. Would doing something like that create like a potential conflict where the county could say, oh, Katati, you have it, you enforce it, or you know what I mean? Like where there's like this like pointing of the finger, like you enforce it, no, you enforce it, no, you enforce it. With like, is that a potential concern?
Absolutely, and that has and does happen.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions on this topic? Still got a couple more to get through for this item. So why don't we move along?
All right, thank you. So next slide, please. We're going to talk about Mikos. So Mikos are home-based restaurants, and they are authorized by state law. And the way that this works is that each county has the option to opt in to the state law, which authorizes Mikos. And so Sonoma County opted in. My mind is failing me on when exactly it was, but it's within the past year that came into effect. And once that happens, we have no choice. We must allow Mikos, and we have very little opportunity for local regulation. And in fact, all of the bulk of the communication and enforcement activity must come from the county. So there is benefit, though, in addressing this in our code. We don't need to, again, like the sidewalk vendors, but the benefit is that we can define what a Miko is in our land use code. And if we do that, then we also know what is not a Miko, and that will help us to, to enforce regulations related to home occupations and other activities in residential areas. We can clarify that Mikos are only allowed in residential uses. Doesn't matter what the zoning is, it just has to be a residential use in the property. It would be beneficial to call out an exemption for our home occupation standards, because we have standards in the home occupation section that we can't actually legally apply to Mikos. So we want to be clear that they're a different animal. We can enforce certain nuisance standards that apply to any land use in the city, and that includes noise, illegal parking, blocking the street, solid waste disposal, things like that are just general to all land uses. We do have those at our disposal. We can also collect business license fees from Mikos, and so that is something that we can put in our ordinance that we want to require the business license. They all do have to have a health permit, and they go through environmental health of the county for that. And as I said, we have this working group with the county that we can use to discuss and troubleshoot any issues that come up. To my knowledge, we don't have any Mikos. And in fact, the uptake has been very, very light in the county compared to what Sonoma County was expecting. I think they may have one opening somewhere. I don't know if it's unincorporated or in Santa Rosa, but there was discussion of one recently. So what we would put in an ordinance would be really this limited sort of scope that I talked about there. Any thoughts, questions?
As far as requiring a business license in the group that you've been working with, is that something other communities are doing?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, Santa Rosa and Petaluma have that requirement, and I think it's more to the point with food trucks and other types of uses. But yeah, they do require that for Mikos. And I had asked the county about whether that was something that they would have to orchestrate, because the state law makes it kind of sound like we can't even talk to the Mikos very much, really. But it sounds like other jurisdictions are collecting their their business tax fees, you know, handling the licensing, business tax license themselves.
Is there like a typical cost associated with the business license? Or does it vary?
Well, it's based on income, and Micos are very limited in what their income can
Yeah.
be.
So it was like less than 100,000 a
Yeah,
year or
so
something like that.
yeah.
When you're first starting out, it's generally between $20 and $40 a year.
Oh, okay. So it's not like a super prohibitive cost, but I see. Okay. What would be the benefit of requiring a business license?
It's a way for us to keep track of businesses that operate in the city so that we, you know, just so that we can keep tabs on our business community. You know, they got to the point where they were earning $100,000. I'm sure we would get more business tax.
Okay.
Also just consistency, but it's both, yeah. So tax revenue, monitoring tax revenue from individual businesses, it kind of gives you a check
Mhm.
on tax receipts
Mhm.
separate from the business tax,
Mm.
which is really what a business license is.
Okay.
And then just kind of fairness across the board for all business activity.
Got it. Okay.
How do we know about tax revenue when dealing with Amico or a sidewalk vendor or popsicle vendors? How do we know? How can we enforce?
Yeah,
the
so
tax-
we actually, there's a lot of data that comes in with tax payments, and we get audits on our tax receipts. Mobile vending is a good example. So technically, mobile vendors are supposed to, let's use an example, you go to a food truck and they have a card reader. They're supposed to set the settings to that card reader to recognize what jurisdiction they're in. So that way that tax gets allocated to that jurisdiction. A majority of them likely just have it set for where they do their books at home. And so that's an opportunity that we actually think many communities are probably missing out on, but it's more of an education thing. And so that's something that this process will allow us to do with that handout, education on how you're supposed to allocate your taxes, pay your taxes, and collect them appropriately.
We move on to food trucks. Finally, something we have some
Yeah.
control over.
Yeah, so,
Um,
sorry, quick question,
yeah.
just clarifying question on the process here. So I know we're talking about all this stuff. Are you guys just like taking notes and bringing it back to council, or like what's the next step here?
So we'll have our council workshop next week. And, you know, I will have the opportunity, since we've already heard from you, to let them know some of the comments and concerns that you had as well as part of my report to them. And then with the input that I get from them, I will go back to my desk and try to figure out, you know, how does this fit into an ordinance format using the language that we use, and how do we want to, you know, adjust some of the standards so that they are actually practical and make sense and are more enforceable, and fit with other portions of our code as well. And then we will come back to the Planning Commission, ideally to the Planning Commission first, and then to the City Council with public hearings to review the ordinance. Actually, we have to come to you first, because what happens is we ask the Planning Commission to review the draft ordinance and consider approving it and recommending it to the City Council for adoption. And at that time, there's also the opportunity for you to ask for some amendments that we can then notify the council about and say, the Planning Commission wanted to recommend this, that you adopt this ordinance. They had a few changes that they suggest that you make before you adopt it, and then they can think about those, as well as the whole document and whether they want to make some other changes.
Okay. Got it. So our kind of vague general conversation about requiring Micos to have a business license, it's like, we don't need to decide on that or agree on that. It's just input you're going to take for
Exactly.
for the general process.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Thank you. That's my question.
Okay, food trucks. So food trucks, whether we have them, whether we allow them or not, is not regulated by state law. So this is really up to the city's discretion. So currently, food trucks are not well addressed by our code. In fact, food truck doesn't appear as a land use in our code. And I think that's because when those portions of the code were adopted, there weren't very many food trucks. But now, of course, they're very popular and many communities are embracing them. And so, we have the opportunity to look at what we're allowing. So right now we look at food trucks as outdoor dining. And so if a restaurant, which is entitled to outdoor dining, if they're a permitted restaurant, if they have outdoor dining, if they want to have outdoor dining, they could also have that in the form of a food truck that is associated with that restaurant. So that means if it's not a restaurant, they don't get to have a food truck out front or on their property. The other case where we see food trucks is special events, obviously. And so, that will continue. We don't necessarily want to, we don't want to make it difficult for people to have food trucks at special events. So given that food trucks do present an interesting economic development opportunity, and provide more culinary choice, and can really liven up certain commercial areas, it's certainly worth looking at. And next slide, please. What we are thinking about here is allowing food trucks on private properties that are not just restaurants. Whether we would allow food trucks on any commercial property, industrial property, or specific plan property. So the specific plans tend to be mixed use zones. That includes the downtown specific plan area, the transit-oriented community area, and the Santero Way area. So essentially any area except strictly residential. We can allow food trucks by right on those kinds of properties. That would still require zoning clearance. We could consider, we could require a permit rather than by right. If we go by right, then certainly in certain cases, a minor use permit at least would make sense. And those would be, are places where we want to have a little bit more review. So for instance, if the property abuts a residential use, would we want the food truck operator to come in and get a minor use permit so that we can look at the situation and make sure that we place conditions that are not going to, that are going to prevent some sort of nuisance for that residential use. And then it also allows public input into the permitting process. Another place we might want to look at a minor use permit is the historic core area, which Noah talked a lot about in his presentation, but part of the downtown specific plan. On the slide here, it's the dark purple area. It's Old Redwood Highway between La Plaza and Page Streets, or historic downtown area, and a sort of sensitive area with a lot of restaurants. That might be an area where more than a by right approval would be indicated. And then potentially if we wanted multiple food trucks on a single property, such as like a food truck park, that might require a higher threshold of permitting, or that might be better indicated there. Would we want to allow any kind of business to host a food truck on their property, any brick and mortar business? So, Walgreens has space in their parking lot. Could they have a food truck? Would we want to go there? Would we consider allowing food trucks on vacant properties? Would we require that there be an existing land use in a brick and mortar situation on the property, or would a vacant property be eligible for food trucks? Next slide, please. And when I say food trucks, I also mean trailers. So it's basically, it's anything. It's a large self-contained food service operation that's either motorized or towed by a motorized vehicle. Some food trucks have outdoor dining areas, and you may have seen them around the county. It's becoming more prevalent that there's a food truck that's set up on a private property, and they have an outdoor dining area as well. So we consider whether we wanted to allow that. And if we did, would we limit the size and the scope and what it looked like? 12 by 12, for instance, is the size of like a standard canopy if we wanted to allow canopies. And then would we require that it be removed each night? Would we require that the food truck be removed each night? The outdoor dining area would be removed each night or stowed somewhere where it's like in an enclosed space on the property that's permitted? Would we allow the outdoor dining as a permanent installation? And if so, would we require a permit for that? So some options associated with the outdoor dining. And on top of that, we can also layer in a number of operating standards to make sure that the food trucks are a positive rather than a negative for the surrounding area. So again, requiring that the truck is removed each night. We would definitely want to require that the required parking for the primary land use on the site, that be maintained so that there's adequate parking, because the odds are high that the food truck might be parked in a parking space in a parking lot. We would want to make sure that the primary use on the site is not blocked by the food truck and that emergency access is maintained. We would probably want some operating hours standards. 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. is our standard commercial hours in the city. Signage is important. I see a lot of food trucks in Santa Rosa with some really intense, it's like the county fair, the lights, the blinky lights. And so, we would want to think about, do we want to limit the signage in terms of being affixed only to the food truck, being, not extending beyond the boundaries, not being lighted, not being flashing, not being animated. And then there's, just sort of standard, maintaining a clean environment around, no litter, no spills cleanup, nothing washing into the storm drains, having trash containers, not creating excessive noise and odors, keeping to our performance standards for those, maintaining the city's polystyrene ban. So that's all I have to say about food trucks. But then there's also this issue we've talked about of not vending from the street, right? So this is, everything I just talked about would be really on private property, so staying out of the public right of way. We also have the option of allowing food trucks in temporary parklets. And if you guys want, we could talk about that as well right now, or we could just leave parklets as kind of my next thing that I was going to get into. One of the next things I was going to get into.
Well, one other thing I would add is there are some communities that allow, or maybe they don't allow, but they do occur where a food truck might drive through like the industrial area and provide lunch to those folks so they don't have to leave, they don't have to drive away. Oftentimes those are vending from the public right away. So just another kind of angle to be thoughtful about, kind of from the mobile vending perspective though.
Yeah, Portland and Los Angeles allow vending from the roadway. I'm sure they're not the only ones.
I know, just on the operating standards, so when you say remove truck from site each night, if that weren't in there, that's implying that they could just stay permanently in a location?
Right.
I don't think they can with the health code, like under their health permit. Pretty sure, unless they're at a commercial kitchen vending, they have to go back to a commercial kitchen at night.
That's good to know. Yeah, so I'll look into that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so that may be, that may obviate the need to put that in our ordinance, or we're reiterating that.
And then there's nothing in here about access to restrooms. Is that something that would be included as well, similar to the carts?
Yes. So the health permit requirement of access to a restroom, I think, is still the same. The reason that I wasn't thinking of it for food trucks is to remove barriers for food trucks, but it is a very practical concern. So yeah, we could address that. And if they are on a private property with a primary use, then that would be part of, the relationship that they would have. And I want to back up and say what we envisioned is if we do want to allow food trucks on private properties, we don't go through a permitting process, they would still have a special questionnaire that they would fill out as part of their business license application so that we could collect information about their operation just to make sure that we understand that everything that they're doing is actually in accordance with standards that we have. And then that would be an opportunity to ascertain that they have that kind of, agreement with the property owner.
Yeah, I think you would need to require that they have access, because I could just practically, I'm not sure what they would do if they didn't have access to a restroom. They would have to be going in and out of a business that they didn't already have that agreement in place with, and that can create issues, so.
I think part of that requirement is for hand washing, and many food trucks have sinks and hand washing facilities interior.
It is. I'm just thinking more of the practicality. Where do they go into the use of the restroom?
Yeah.
I wonder if they have restrooms in there. I mean, camper vans do. I wonder if
They don't.
they don't.
No.
I don't think they do
5-gallon
typically.
bucket.
I
Let's
don't,
hope not, Shelley.
so just kind of going down the packet page 49 with these lists here, I don't think that we need to require a minor use permit if the property abuts residential use, only because we encourage mixed use so much that I wonder, how many properties in Cotati don't abut residential use. And I think that even minor use permits can be a barrier sometimes. I leave it up to you with the DSP historic, and definitely for multiple trucks operating. So a food truck part should have a minor use permit for sure. As far as, allowing tables, I think tables are always nice. I think, I feel like I see trucks that stay overnight in a spot. You saying the health code, they have to move every night? Oh, okay.
Unless they're at a place with a commercial kitchen. It's like a restaurant.
Okay. Intriguing. And this has allow exceptions with a multi-use permit. So I guess you just need to look into that if we even can allow an exception, or if that would be a violation of health code. I don't think that, so when you say maintain minimum parking for primary use on the site, you're not saying that they need to have parking for the food truck. It's parking for whatever the use of the business is. Okay. And would those parking spots need to meet our city minimums of what a company needs to have?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always the case if it's, a use that's been there for a while, say, previous to our current standards. But yeah, we're assuming that, in any given commercial or industrial property or mixed use property, they have the parking that we require or more, and that we then don't want the food truck to bring that amount of parking lower than what our standard is for
Okay.
that type of use.
Got it. And then, I'm personally fine with permanent installations of tables. I don't know why we don't want them to vend on public streets. I'm not against not wanting them to. I just don't really understand why we don't want them to.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question too.
I think it has to do with a few things, but one of them is kind of giving a commercial benefit of public space to one individual or business versus everyone else. So, when you allow, but the one over on the west side of town is a good example. So there's a trailer truck now parked regularly in a public parking space. So that public parking space is now being removed from the ability for the public to use, and that business is benefiting from that. And so there's kind of some thoughts of, is that a better use of that public space to allow this individual to operate from there than it would be to have it available for the public to park? So that's one. And then the other is just the practical concerns over kind of circulations. Like, so if they cause traffic problems, especially if they were kind of more mobile, pulling in and out of traffic regularly, stopping frequently, all those types of things are some of the concerns.
So just going back to my childhood here, what about ice cream trucks? Like, would the ice cream truck no longer be allowed to come up the street with their super cool music? And I like ice cream trucks.
Well, I mean, that's the way it is right now.
Okay.
It's just that, who's going to turn them in? But, but if we wanted to actually like encourage and embrace parking of food vending vehicles on the street, then that's something we would need to sort of proactively look at with what our code allows and doesn't allow.
I don't know. What do y'all think? Do we want to proactively embrace?
Question I have, someone rents the Ray Miller Community Center. Can they have a food truck over there?
So that's a good question. It would depend on whether they had a special event permit of some kind. So otherwise I would say probably not.
Yeah, but I'm
But
saying if somebody had,
They're under the auspices of the
wedding
recreation
and they-
department.
because that's kind of a popular thing right now to have food trucks instead of
Yeah.
having a caterer for a wedding.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that if that's part of their, this is a park, right? The community center is a park. Then they need to make a reservation, they need to pay a fee, they spell out what they're going to be doing at the facility, then, I think that they have the latitude to include a food truck. I would say that would totally be within the realm of possibility.
When you rent the
So-
city facility, you do get access to the parking lot as a part of your rental.
Yeah.
So I believe that would be an allowable use.
And then my other question, because I'm kind of confused now with something that Ryan said, as far as the food trucks being able to stay overnight. So when, for instance, the accordion festival, those trucks are usually there Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
That's part of a special event permit, so that's
So that's
separate
Separate.
from these regulations. That's correct.
okay.
So kind of in that same line of questioning, if I'm, say, a business owner, let's say I own like a clothing store and I have a friend who owns a food truck and I want to do like a thing where I partner with them, would that require a special event thing? Like if I wanted to have like a party or something and have my friend who had the food truck come park outside my business, would that require a special event permit? Or with these new regulations, could I just say, hey, food truck owner friend, come and park your food truck outside my shop today?
Well, one of the things that I want to talk about is temporary parklets and whether we can allow food trucks and food carts in temporary parklets. Those are parking spaces. As far as just, parking on the property or parking, on the roadway. If you had a special event permit or a limited term permit, then the food truck can be included with that. So otherwise, we don't have a provision, or we're not, not considering provisions for that right now.
But I would say if the commission thinks it's a good idea to allow that type of activity, this is a good
Yeah.
time to provide that input. And the code does anticipate mixed uses and kind of encourages that. And one of the things similar to what the commission's been talking about is kind of bars. Right now, there's bars that don't really have food service. The ability for them to provide food is generally seen as a good thing, and it may kind of level up the experience of going out for a drink when you could also get a really good food that happens to be from a food truck.
Yeah,
Parked in
isn't
front.
that what like Parliament does or something?
A lot of the breweries do
Yes.
that, yeah.
Like breweries do that,
Yeah,
And they operate from the right of way.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's Roanoke Park, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also some of the other jurisdictions in the county will allow food trucks only in like the industrial neighborhoods, and that's where the breweries tend to be, because that, and that's where, and they end up with food trucks, coming, like they do to Parliament. And I think that that's because it's just the industrial neighborhood. They specifically have that in their code.
With you mentioned signage, and that wasn't really, I didn't really see that in the presentation laid out. Is there a way, if they are somehow classified as a permanent installation, is there a way to classify them as a permanent installation there, you know, at a location, or that they're there for a certain amount of time? Like, are we looking at that as like, okay, they're now a permanent business that comes here every day? They use this spot every day, they go back every, you know, throughout the year?
That's the intent.
We're imagining that could occur based on establishing some regulations.
Yeah.
Because right now, food truck isn't even discussed.
Right.
Right.
So if that were the case, I would imagine that they would fall under whatever our sign permitting process is, because like you said, a lot of them can be really loud and in your face, a lot of the signs. And I would, you know, I wouldn't want to create some kind of loophole where we don't have control over that.
Right, yeah, no, we're contemplating specific signage standards. The thing about our sign standards, just generally, they're oriented towards brick and mortar businesses, you know? So they contemplate kind of, you know, a building, and they talk about percentage of the facade and whatnot, you know? So I think with the food trucks, we need something that's a little bit more tailored.
Mhm.
So we would have some standards that are specific to food trucks.
Yeah. And then could you walk through kind of what Kimberlyn talked about with the MUP process for one that abuts a residential? Can you maybe like give me a real world example of what that could look like?
So if you had a property that is zoned commercial or mixed use, and it happens to be, you know, that there is a residential property with a residential use in it immediately next door on
Such
the
as that
adjoining
property
property, then before a food truck could be placed there, you know, the applicant, you know, the food truck, or maybe the property owner would need to come in to get a minor use permit. So they fill out the minor use permit application. They would explain to us, you know, what hours of operation, where on the property, and what kind of signs are they going to have, and how much noise are they going to be making, or, you know, that which we would get from the hours of operation more than anything. Then we have a notice that goes out to properties and residents within 500 feet of that site. They're notified that this is proposed. They have the opportunity to come to a minor use permit hearing, which is presided over by our director, where, you know, there's the opportunity for people to provide input. They can also provide written comments as well, but they can come to the hearing, they can provide their concerns, and then there's the opportunity to, you know, address those concerns in that what's proposed, you know, there at the hearing.
If that business, that commercial property has a business and it's switching its use to a different type of business, what kind of process would that brick and mortar have to go through? Because I guess where I'm going with this question is, if I'm a resident and I live next to this business and, you know, it has a certain level of intensity, and I realize that, you know, living here, and then all of a sudden it becomes a more intense use there at that business, and there was no process to kind of restrict that, that could be, like, do we allow the intensity of a business to increase without any kind of opening it up to like a MUP or some kind of more intense?
Yes, so the zoning districts kind of envision the types of businesses they want to occur as permitted uses, the types of businesses that they might want to occur, but they want to have the use permit process because of the need to provide input. So your example, Cotati Market is a good example, because there's a house right next door to the market. So right now, if Cotati Market wanted to become a restaurant serving drinks, open till 11 o'clock at night, full bar, but with the restaurant, that's a principally permitted use. We would not say no to that.
Mhm.
And that's throughout the city of Cotati. Restaurants are very well supported, like historically are allowed uses, even if they serve alcohol.
Mhm.
But a bar requires a full conditional use permit, planning commission approval, $8,000 to ask the question, can I operate? So intensity isn't necessarily a good way to measure it, because sometimes our code will allow an intensification of a property as a by right, no input from adjacent property owners. And it's almost dependent on the type of use more than the intensity of the use.
So food truck would kind of mirror more a restaurant.
Yes, it's some, but under the current ordinance, or the current idea is adding a food truck because it's adding something that's outside. The activities are outside. They often have generators. If there's residents next door.
Generators. We should address that in the ordinance.
Yeah.
Because that can be really disruptive.
Yeah, so I think that the food trucks, they can have the the generator set into the body of the truck or the trailer, so that, I mean, we certainly wouldn't allow them to have a generator that was not attached to the truck or the trailer. They couldn't set a generator out on the ground. But they can have, I've seen them with like, like a little platform that's inset, kind of like a little box. And so the generator, it's still out and you can hear it, like the face of it is showing, but it's within the body of the truck. So it's quieter. But they still make noise.
They're still pumping out exhaust.
There's that too.
Well, they should all have Tesla batteries, and we should have food trucks in the Tesla battery lot. That we should just change that lot to a food truck lot with Tesla batteries. That's what I think. But could a food truck go into that lot right there, not in the Tesla lot, but next to it?
So
Next-
it's city property, so it needs, that's kind of another kind of facet to it, is it gets back to similar to the right-of-way question of who gets rights to use a city park versus not use it, because the city would have to make a decision, yes to you, no to you. So that is a question. Right now, no, just because we haven't figured out how to say yes, unless somebody proposed a special use permit or a special event permit.
But if they went to the synagogue and said, can we have this kosher food truck right here? They could get permission from the synagogue to be
Yes.
in their parking lot.
That's, yes.
The corner of Page and Old Redwood Highway, on the other side where it's dirt across from co-housing, could a food truck park there and vend?
So that abuts residential. So that's where we're asking, like,
Mhm.
how do we want to start to think about these things? Where do we think has the potential to be problematic? There's no on-site restroom. It's abutting residential. So that's one that
It's not
right now,
electrical.
I think as drafted, that situation needs some regulation. And we're looking to the commission to just highlight things to be concerned about, and we'll take that to the council and then draft regulations that try to address those concerns that we hear from the commission.
And when our planning commission meeting goes after 8:30, which it never has before, then we have a food truck pull up. A roach coach, in this case, a roach coach, bring us coffee. Yeah.
Sorry, I should have gone for something less demonstrative.
But I don't like the idea of flashy signs. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna be
Or
unanimous.
generators running all day. If there's a way to control that a little bit, especially next to residences.
Where I've seen these food trucks setting up, I live in Santa Rosa, is gas stations.
Yeah.
Auto body shops.
Mhm.
No, they're properties that, they have space and they're on a trafficked corridor.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little more inclined to keep the MUP process if it abuts residential, just keeping the residents of Cotati, at heart in our decisions.
And to be clear, that would be abuts any portion of that property, so like it, or would it have to be like?
We were
immediately
thinking
adjacent?
right now, we were thinking the operation abutting the residential. So sticking with the Cotati Market example, if a truck set up on Old Redwood Highway,
Mhm,
no residents, the buildings between the operation and the residents,
mhm.
that seems like it may not need a minor use permit. Whereas if they set up around the corner,
Mhm.
proposed to be adjacent to, like, how,
And that's where the taco stand sets up.
I haven't seen it, so I just learned about this.
Yeah, they're set up right there.
So it would be where where the food truck is operating abuts residential, not
Correct.
the property from which they are operating.
That's what we thought would be a better way to regulate, because sticking with downtown, all the bars that front onto Old Redwood Highway, if you had a food truck set up in one of the public parking spaces as a part of them doing a parklet, which is next,
Mhm.
there's residential behind that property. So if you just do parcel lines, it may not make as much sense.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Whereas we wanted an operation abutting the residential.
Got it. What do y'all think of that?
I know a lot of this is,
I want one on
hypothetical, actually,
Cypress.
because we're trying to think about what ifs.
Right.
Not knowing whether something's going to happen. And a what if that just popped in my mind is, say Ryan wants to throw his kids a birthday party and they're going to have a taco truck out in the driveway.
That's not something we're addressing.
Generally, private parties,
Haven't been addressing here.
you could call the police.
Okay.
If the party gets that out of hand.
Yeah, the 3-year-old's party.
Can you
I'll
fit
show
a food
up.
truck in a driveway?
Right, because I mean, with this same thing like jumpy houses, like, it's basically the same. Sometimes they set them up, it might, I mean.
Okay.
Let's hear about parklets.
Yeah. let's
Yeah.
go on to the
So
next one.
I think, we've talked around this topic quite a bit. So parklets, we don't actually have any, but we would like some. Flagship was our only parklet and they've moved out. The parklet's still there, so maybe the next business will use it. And parklets can be on public or private parking spaces. And right now, parklets are not regulated by our code. They are guided by an internal policy document that we developed at the staff level. We shared with the decision makers whenever we adopted it a couple of years ago, but it's not codified. And we're not proposing to change that. City approval is required for any parklet though, and we vet them for safety and accessibility primarily. So we allow temporary parklets. They haven't been very well defined. A permanent parklet requires like a wooden deck that's raised above the surface of the parking area. It requires, flush with the curb, so that there's no trip hazards, requires all these things. And they're expensive. Temporary parklets provide an opportunity for businesses to utilize the parking out front on a short-term basis without the installation and without taking that parking space just out of commission on a semi-permanent basis. So we do want to get some feedback to shape that policy for potential other kinds of activities. So food trucks, right now, no one has approached us to put a food truck in a parking space that I know of in a parklet situation, but we think that maybe we'd like to allow that. So a temporary parklet could include a food truck. It could include a food cart, not a sidewalk vendor because they're not on the sidewalk, but the same sort of apparatus, right? A cart or some other kind of small scale food preparation operation. Just one day, they wouldn't be there overnight. And maybe any kind of business could have these parklets. So parklets in a permanent nature have been really for restaurants. It's an extension of their outdoor dining. But, what if, as, some of you have brought up, what if businesses of any kind could have a food truck out in their temporary parklet with city approval for some short period of time? We sort of kicked it around. We thought maybe 40 days a year maximum might be a reasonable number, considering like, if we had any brew pubs, if we had any breweries, that wanted a food truck out front, they could have a weekend event, several times a year and have a food truck there or food cart, so that it's not all week, limit it to 3 days consecutive at the most with, at least a 4-day break in between so that it's not all week that there's this parking spaces being used for this temporary parklet. And they would still need to come to the city for approval so that we can make sure that safety and accessibility issues are being addressed. So that's kind of what we were thinking, and we'd love to get some feedback on that.
In the situation of like a business inviting a food truck, like a brewery or some other business, when we say like a temporary parklet, like would it require the parklet infrastructure? Like what would designate it as a parklet? That term for some reason, like my brain has a really hard time associating the word parklet with like an eating area. Yeah, it's like it's Like, why a let though? Why?
Because it's
Parklet?
cute.
Yeah, I'm like, outlet.
Or yeah, it's a, yeah.
Yeah. I
So,
just don't know why they call them that.
right. So, one of the important features of any parklet is going to be safety,
Mhm.
right? So, what we would need to make sure is that the parking spaces are, that they are clearly marked, that, they are not available for parking right now. Don't attempt to pull into this parking space. There's a food truck there.
Got it.
That they are really not parking spaces for that time of being a temporary parklet.
Mhm.
That and us just ensuring, it's not on East Cotati, for instance. It needs to be a street with slow enough traffic
Mhm.
that it's not going to become a hazard.
Mhm.
So, that's the primary issue. And then we would need to, it would be sort of on us to make sure, on our department, probably just to make sure that businesses weren't abusing that they weren't like going over their number of days or, doing it, day and day and day, continuing on.
I wonder about all of the city approval that's in here, and I'm curious if we have different kind of safety regulations, why we would need city approval beforehand. It would just be if they're violating the safety regulations, then they're violating the safety regulations and they'll have to leave. There'll be consequences to it. And I'm also not super sure what city approval means. Like, I know how to go about the process of a minor use permit, but how do I go about the process of city approval? Is it just like I can ask Kevin if he's cool with it, or ask Noah? Like,
Oh, you have to ask
I don't
us.
know. Like,
So, well, with the permanent parklets, it's clear, right? Especially if they're on public property, we require a license agreement. So the city approval in this particular case is someone coming to us. We do have an application. All right. So there's an application form. They fill out the application. They describe what they want to do. Community development reviews it. We share it with police and, I guess we would show it to fire too, public works, police, and we vet it for any particular concerns related to safety and accessibility or anything that public works is doing out in the public right away. And then we issue a letter of approval that would come from our department saying, we're authorizing you to do this. This is the time frame. Here are our requirements.
And I would just add, the idea behind this is the license agreement. So right now, the outdoor dining you see in downtown, so the tables set up in front of Redwood Cafe, they have a license agreement with the city to use the public right away, like we were talking about with the people parking and using a parking space. The city licenses them that space, make sure there's certain insurance in place. And also the goal is like the city sees the benefit of having that outdoor activity and the liveliness of a downtown is important to the whole public, the whole community. And so we grant that license agreement. We use that similar tool, like if it were, the idea is we would use that similar tool through this parklet permit to allow Spanky's to park a food truck in the parking space in front of their business 3 days a month to have food truck service with the bar. That's the idea. And then on private property, like the Twins kind of has a parklet, but we were imagining like if someone wanted to take away a parking space or two in that shopping center, they're taking those away from all these other shared businesses. So we have to have a process that allows us to bless that and say, you're taking away kind of a communal right, but it's to the benefit of everybody else because you're generating more retail activity. These other businesses will benefit from it. So it allows us opportunity to engage with them, tell them what the set of rules are. Here's the set of rules. Make sure it was a big deal during the COVID situation with the tents, that the material be fire retardant, that there's exits, that there's fire extinguishers. How are they providing lighting? It just, a lot of those elements get looked at. And so I know it sounds like city approval, but we do have processes set up and applications and kind of prescribed regulations around all of these.
so you're telling me it's fairly streamlined.
That's why it's not in the code. It lives as Autumn invented this process. It's an application. We talked to all the other departments to be able to route it around, get input, make sure it's safe, but also keep it relatively streamlined because we want to encourage it.
How expensive is it to get city approval?
Oh, there's no fee associated with
Oh.
it. It's a great deal. I mean, with the permanent parklets, they require a building permit. So like what Flagship did, they needed a building permit for that, But no, for the planning portion and the review of the other departments, it's free because the council really wanted to encourage parklets. People really liked them, the ones we had during COVID, and there was a lot of interest in keeping them. So
Yeah, it's intentional I mean, it's an economic development driver. That's the goal, support businesses, give them options to be flexible in how they're operating. And we're seeing this as building on that. And the goal is not to add cost and bureaucracy, but to make sure we take care of the things we need to, and they're safe and known that they're operating in a safe way, but also add flexibility.
My only concern is mainly with the downtown area, because I mean, we have the new jewelry store down there now. We have a restaurant that will be coming down. It's already tight parking. So if if multiple businesses down there want to have food trucks at the same time, is that allowed?
Well, that's the type of input we were hoping to hear from the commission. Right now, the draft says 40 days a year. And there is a process. So if we wanted to say, and it must be staggered with other businesses, or they can't be, we could look at over concentration, how to minimize that. We'd have to think about how to be able to effectively do it. The other thing is you could stagger the hours, where if it's bars and they pretty much, it would only start after 7, or maybe after, ideas like that are helpful for us to start to craft regulations around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that we'd want some type of guidance around the maximum number that could happen during any one day.
Yeah, like a percentage of.
Yeah, like, maybe no
something.
more than 2 food trucks a day downtown, maximum 40 times a year. So that, because, I mean, I'm already envisioning, with the new restaurant coming in, everything, that it's going to be difficult to find parking downtown. And a food truck usually takes more than one parking spot. So it's like, that's my biggest concern is the downtown core and the loss of parking.
Mhm.
Wouldn't it be kind of exciting though, if you couldn't find a parking spot right away like you can now? Because that would mean tons of people were there.
Well, and specifically downtown, those spots are really angled too, so it would be hard to park a food truck, I imagine. I don't know, maybe not. You'd have to take up at least 2 spaces though. It's a good point, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Ed has a very valid point. Like, what if all the businesses along downtown decide, hey, we want to have a food truck in front of our business today, independently of each other, and then all of a sudden there's no parking downtown because there's 7 food trucks. Like that, I think that is important to kind of write a rule around so we can avoid that type of situation.
But I like the idea, you said maybe staggering hours. So it's like, you can have 2 food trucks downtown, one from noon to 6 and the other one from 6 to whatever, knowing that, it's a food truck's going to take 2 parking spaces.
yeah, parklets are allowed to be 2 spaces if it's public parking, and 3 in private parking lots.
The city approval process we just talked about, is that available like easily online or something like that? Like, how do people know that that's the process?
They ask us.
Okay.
So we have, it needs to be updated probably, but we have a document that is like, these are our parklets guidelines. And, all over it says, contact the city, contact the city, contact the city. So we don't really want people embarking on this project without having checked in with us so that they understand what they can do. I mean, and that's actually true of a lot of things that are codified too. Like if somebody wants to build something or do a renovation or remodel, you know, they are always welcome to come and talk to us. And in a lot of cases, we want them to come and talk to us so that we can understand what they want to do and apprise them of any pitfalls, give them pointers so that when they come back for their real process, it's really smooth. And that's how we get part of our reputation of being the best city to work with
Okay.
in
So
the county.
I see.
So we envision it being very hands-on, especially with the first few, if they happen at all,
Mhm.
you know, that we would really be working closely with businesses to help them figure out. You know, we did allow, the only temporary parklet that we've done so far was Sal's Pizzeria, and they applied for a limited term permit, which is $1,000.
Mm.
And all they wanted to do was put out like a little ice cream stand and have some music out in their parking space. And I said, no, I really don't think you should apply for a limited term permit for $1,000 to do that. We should work something else out. And that's how we came to amending our standards to add the temporary option, which has not included food trucks up until this time though.
I see. So the information is out there that if they want to learn, and then it just says contact the city and then you help guide them through the process.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and if we have this option to kind of this sort of temporary parklets on steroids, then, you know, we would want to do more outreach
Mhm.
to the
Yep.
businesses to let them know,
Mhm.
you know, that this is an option and what they would need to do.
Okay.
Any more about parklets or? What's left in our workshop to discuss?
I'm hoping that the last things are going to be pretty quick.
Okay.
Yes, okay. Outdoor dining. Okay, so we've talked about outdoor dining a little bit. This is the question. So currently, the language in our code does require a minor use permit when outdoor dining. So this is sort of setting aside, you know, the question of a parklet. This is a classic outdoor dining. Abuts a residential use. A minor use permit is required, and that is the case in the downtown commercial zone and all of our specific plan zones, which is a fair amount of territory, you know, and these are mixed use zones. So this minor use permit is required. We thought this is a good time to just check in with our decision makers to confirm that that is the requirement that we want to have. Because, you know, as you know, the minor use permit does introduce expense and uncertainty and time into
So for
the
instance, at
process.
Sal's, they have outdoor dining. They have to have a minor use permit for that. They're below
They
residential.
might. I don't know how long they've had that and they may have had that predating when the code was last amended and added that requirement. I don't know.
But I think that's a good point that depending on the direction we get here, we could end up in a situation like that. And I think the point that we're moving towards mixed use is really important. So it may be that we want to say an offsite residential use. So then, you know, if you're renting an apartment or buying a condo above a restaurant, that's just part of your deal because you're on site. But maybe to the other example, if Cotati Market, you live next door and they convert to a restaurant and they want to put 10 all their tables outside right next door to my front yard. Should that be a public process? I mean, that's kind of where we're trying to get input to.
Yeah, I think the
craft these.
residents at Sal's, they're actually the landlords, so they probably have a little bit of influence over that. But yeah, I think in
Yeah.
most situations would make sense.
I like the city approval thing instead of a multi-use permit. I mean, I think if we can get away from kind of the red tape that the MUPs do cause, and we really are mixed use in a lot of ways, or maybe it's you need a multi-use or sorry, I work in school, so MUs are multi-use
permit.
a minor use permit. It shouldn't just be residential use, but a residential zoning, because we have so many mixed use properties abutting our commercial properties, or they're just both, right? So.
And I feel like I know this already, but I want to ask again, does a minor use permit require, like, you mentioned public process, like what does that?
It's a $2,000 application fee. It's a public hearing. We notify the neighbors, but it's very much run like this. But it's decided by the director. So it's appealable to the planning commission.
Gotcha, okay.
And if someone in the public appeals it, it's automatically pushed up to planning commission. Is that true?
Yeah, an
And then it's
appeal-
an additional fee for the applicant?
So we revised that process that was allowing a member of the public to request a hearing.
Mm-hmm.
But we replaced it with, we're automatically going to have a hearing in these instances and the goal of that is to notify the public and the people around. And that was for these limited term permits. So these 1 year, you can request event, kind of like an event permit, but run through our department. And you can use them for different things. That now requires notification. It's a director level decision. It's like a minor use permit, but the fee stayed the same for the applicants. Actually, I'm sorry, that's not correct. It added the notification costs, so the mailing. But it was a way to introduce certainty. So there was not going to be like, am I going, am I not? Am I going to get a decision on that day or not? You know the decision date, but the public is still notified and the residents are still notified of the process. The minor use permit, the goal of that is to allow a public notification and an appeal if they don't like that decision.
Just want to make sure it's not an avenue to weaponize someone for something not associated with the permit.
Yeah, and appeals do have their own feel and it has to have their own fee and they have to be paid by the appellant. So someone choosing to appeal a decision has to pay.
All right. Do we have another?
Yes,
Okay.
okay, done with outdoor dining, okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, so let's just knock these out. So we have a few different food-related land uses that we want to explore expanding the zones that they're allowed in. So chicken keeping is one. Oh, I'm sorry, next slide. Chicken keeping is one, market gardens and garden stands is another. And then this is actually the next slide after that, but community gardens. And with chicken keeping, what the code says is that that is accessory to a residential use, regardless of what zone that's in. But then elsewhere in the code, it says that chicken keeping is allowed only in residential and commercial districts. So we have all these mixed use districts that allow residential. There are standards in place such that you can't just put a chicken coop anywhere. You have to have a certain setback from your side and rear property lines. You have to have, you can't have a chicken coop in the front yard. So, we have these standards in place. Would it make sense to extend chicken keeping to our mixed use districts where there is a residential use if they can meet those standards, which aren't available to everybody? Same idea with the market gardens and the garden stand. So a garden stand is a 3-day-a-week maximum little stand you can set up to sell your own produce, and you can only have it. It's part of the market garden land use. And that is also accessory to a residential use, but the code says allowed only in residential zones. Do we want to extend that type of land use, market gardens and garden stands, to the mixed use and commercial zones where we have residential? With community gardens, it's a little bit different. Community gardens are allowed only in residential zones. And when they weren't allowed at all until a few years ago, and there are a lot of concerns about community garden management. We have standards related to those in the code. But community gardens are actually most successful near multifamily development, and that's not allowed in our residential only zones. And so for successful community gardens, if we want them, it would make sense to allow them in the commercial and mixed use zones. So we are looking for feedback from all of
Yes,
you on
yes
that.
yes on chickens, yes on gardens, yes on growing, yes on everywhere, yes. Yes. YES, yes. from me.
Okay.
And can you remind me of the requirements as far as roosters?
No roosters,
No
No.
roosters.
no roosters.
Oh my gosh, that's wrong. We got
But
to have
does
at
that
least,
affect rural residential?
Um,
Do I have to get rid of my roosters?
Remember, I don't, you know, it's the same kind of situation with most of our code enforcement activities, right? You can it's complaint driven. Okay, let me back up what I said. Roosters are permitted in the open space districts, which is why we have them over at Veranda Folletti Ranch, and in the RR zone,
You're good.
rural residential. So not in the other zones. And the council has some pretty strong feelings about that. At least they did a few years ago. This is.
and I
hens-
guess
hens-
chickens alongside the creek. That's a problem with chickens alongside the creek. True?
Is it rats or?
Well, I think it's about.
The runoff?
It's about the runoff.
runoff?
Yeah, so we have general standards related to chicken keeping and urban ag uses that, there should be no runoff into bodies of water.
Well, I'm supportive of these changes as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm wondering, like, given the setback requirements, is it even feasible to have a chicken coop in a mixed use environment? Like, don't they usually have?
Probably not in
lower-
a mixed use that's like a new build. But we have, Cotati is just such a patchwork of different land uses within our zones. So, you can have a mixed use zone or even a commercial zone where there's a single family house.
Mm.
So, our thought is, well, why deny those people the legal
Mm.
right to have chickens?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, If they can meet the setback.
Cows,
requirements.
maybe.
Yeah, so, and with other
What
kinds
do you
of
have
animals.
against cows?
Yeah.
They have miniature
Okay,
cows.
you guys want to hear
You
the
can-
last
as a
one?
house
Yep.
pet.
Okay.
I like this one.
This one's really simple. We want to come into the last century and consider allowing home occupation activities to happen on other floors in the house besides just the ground floor. We still keep it to 25% of the floor area, but it'll allow it to take place on other floors.
Autumn, are you telling me that I've just been breaking city code by having an office on my second floor?
Apparently,
There
yeah. Yeah, so.
Not me. I haven't done that.
This was written, I
Oh.
suppose, before Wi-Fi and all that good stuff, so.
Yeah, so
Back in like
let's do it.
the 1800s when people worked on the first floor and lived on the second.
yeah.
kind of thing, Yeah.
Yes.
Raise cows on the first.
Yeah.
So, thank you, folks, for all this input. We really appreciate it. Any last questions?
Um,
Thank you.
yeah,
Are
thank
are you leaving the meeting now? I understand there's a taco stand right by.
Okay, maybe you want
I
me to
wondered
give
if you
something?
could bring us back.
No.
I'm getting a little lightheaded here, not eating.
Yeah, thanks, Autumn.
Yeah,
The one
thank you.
question I did have, did we really give you any direction on having multiple food trucks on one, kind of like a Matote type concept?
I heard one definite minor use permit,
Okay,
which is kind of the way we were thinking.
yeah, okay.
Yes.
I'm open to the concept, but with the right
Mhm.
guardrails. Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
Thank you.
And
Thanks,
a-
Autumn.
A minor use permit, is that good for a extended period of time? Like, what's the
Yes.
time limit on that?
Once it's granted, it actually is permanent.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it can be sold, it can be transferred.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Can it be revoked by the city if they like,
You guys want to do a recess? Is everybody-
what's the word? Break the rules?
Yeah, so
Room.
usually a use permit has conditions on the use, like conditional use.
guys wanna
permit,
just
they'll
power
call that.
through
If
it?
they don't follow those conditions, so it's approved subject
Recess?
to X, Y, and Z.
Uh-huh.
If they don't do X, Y, and Z, then it's revocable.
Me too.
Okay.
Can we take a quick recess? All right. Be back in a few minutes.
You can have my water. I'm not gonna drink it. I brought some. I haven't sneezed. They say that little
Some super good like skills there, but thing. But I didn't know that's.
Next on the agenda is the housing fair and housing survey.
Alrighty, good evening or good night, planning commissioners. I know it's been a long day, but bear with me as I do this last agenda item. Today I'm here to talk about the housing and resource fair and the survey result as requested by the planning commissioners. Next slide, please. So just as a brief background, the city of Cotati updated and adopted its housing element in 2023. And housing element is just a state mandated chapter of general plan which guides the housing needs and provides guideline for recommendation for city to address those needs as well. As part of that update, the city of Cotati has committed to hosting an annual housing and resource fair together with local agency, nonprofit housing providers, and local agencies as well. Next slide, please. And as part of that housing and resource fair, we do put out housing fair survey. So this year, our housing fair survey were pretty low. We only had 10 responses in total. Last year, we had 8 responses. So in total, we had 18 responses over 2 years. As a result, the staff thought it would be better just to combine the housing survey put out by the city over the last 5 years with the 2024 and 2025 housing fair survey just to provide a more comprehensive city data on housing needs of the community members. Next slide, please. So moving over to the survey results, as you can see from the age group, the survey respondents were pretty spread out. So they were from 25 to 64 age range, with some of them being over 64 as well. Most people either lived in Cotati for a very long time, with people being living here for more than 11 to 20 years or more than 20 years, with less people living here in short term as well. So you can see less than 5 years is also significant in the chart as well. Next slide, please. When we asked why Cotati or why they want to move to Cotati or why they live in Cotati, many of the respondents did say work opportunity and proximity to the workplace were among the top reasons why they chose Cotati. Community, affordable housing, friends and family were also among the top reasons for choosing Cotati as well. Most of the respondents lived in single-family housing, with some of them also living in multi-unit apartments, townhouses, with many either owning their residence or renting it, which you can see on the next slide. We also wanted to find out how difficult finding housing was in Cotati. So when we asked that question, a lot of people did say it was very difficult, somewhat difficult, harder than expected. So it does align with the city trends and county housing trends on, finding it hard to find affordable and just housing in general in Cotati as well. Next slide, please. In the 2024 and 2025 housing survey, we did ask the question if people are looking for housing, and we can see that many respondents did and were looking for housing. They did prefer to see single-family housing, multi-unit apartments, and townhouses were also really popular to them as well. Living near transit area and bicycle pedestrian network was also really important to community members as well. Next slide, please. When we asked what are the most important housing issues in Cotati, we did see housing affordability and availability to be among the top reasons that they think a city is facing. There's also other issues that they think are important, such as homelessness, excessive developments, governmental regulations were also some of the reasons why they think these issues were really important in Cotati. what would have made your housing process easier? We also wanted to ask this question because this was a housing fair and we did want to connect people with resources as well. So it seemed it was pretty similar to the question that we asked before, housing affordability, obviously housing availability, and were also top reasons and things that they thought would make their housing process easier. They also wanted a more stronger local housing board, which could provide more resources, and they also wanted more resources in general to find housing in Cotati. Next slide, please. Just as a brief recap of the Housing and Resource Fair held on September 13, 2025, it was hosted by the City of Cotati with Roanoke Park, with collaboration with Roanoke Park and Cotati Library. We had 15 participating orgs present. We can also see that on staff report, the listed 15 participating organization. It was a pretty good event and we had pretty good attendance. About 127 people attended overall. Next slide, please. So one of the major highlight for the Housing and Resource Fair was the first time homeowner buyer workshop, which was pretty popular among community members. We had amazing panelists from Burbank Housing, Sequin Mortgage, Redwood Credit Union, and Housing Land Trust. So about 40 people attended the workshop and we overall had a great feedback from community members. People were really excited to learn about these first time homeowner buyer workshop and resources as well. So I think in general, it was a pretty huge success. We did have live Spanish translation available just to provide more accessibility and inclusivity to other community residents living in Cotati and Roanoke Park as well. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, we are planning to continue with collaboration with Roanoke Park and the library, and we will continue to make improvements, especially in regards to marketing the housing fair, because we did see some low respondents in the survey question. So just wanted to point out that we did have some initiatives going on for taking surveys. So we providing free meal vouchers for people who did take the survey. So we had some initiatives going on too, but moving forward, we do want to provide more initiatives so people can take the survey and we have more data, more comparable data year by year as well. And next year, we do plan to hold similar workshop theme. So kind of similar to first-time homeowner workshop, we are thinking about financial resources for homeowners, also ADU resources for someone who's interested in building ADU in their property as well. And nextly, you can also look forward to staff report on housing efforts by the City of Cotati, which will be addressed in the next annual housing report anticipated in March of 2026. Next slide, please. And that ends my presentation. You can see the picture. We have the Cotati booth, and we also had some recreation area for some children and the library photos as well.
All right, thank you so much. Questions?
Yes, I read that the information went out about this fair in the water bill.
Right, correct.
I don't get the water bill.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So how am I going to find out? How are renters going to find out who don't get the water bill?
Yeah, that's a good question. We used all of our social media channels. We used the Cotati Connection newsletter, which I believe is only a water bill mailer if you don't look at it electronically. We're open to suggestions about other ways. I believe there was some flyering around, like at Oliver's and on the kiosks, we put the flyer up. But if there's other ways that the commission might suggest for us to get the word out, we're open, because the goal is to get more and more people to attend these. And also provide information to what people really need to hear, right?
Yep. I did also want to add that we did have flyers on the farmers market way before, a month before. So people did have the opportunity to go to farmers market and actually see the flyers and actually learn about the housing and resource fair as well.
The Cotati Connection newsletter, I don't think I've ever seen that. Can you explain that a little more?
So that's a citywide newsletter that's put out It's interesting to me that you're not seeing it. So it's
It's a hard copy.
a hard
Just once a
copy.
year?
I get my water bill electronically,
mine
so I don't
Hmm.
know.
Let me research
Yeah, I
that.
haven't been looking at that.
Electronically.
Maybe I'm not
I've
the one
never
paying
seen
it.
it.
Let me research that because it is a monthly newsletter that gets
Yeah.
put out by the city and,
Me and my wife handle different bills.
I know, I
so-
understand, yeah. As I say, one of the challenges, and this is a real challenge, is Cotati actually has one of the most diverse age ranges of all the communities, between Sonoma State and people who have been here for a long time. And so it's a struggle for us to really ensure that we're getting the best way to share information with all the different types of demographics that we have. So we're always open to suggestions,
Is
but
there-
I will get you research on the
Okay,
Cotati
that's
connection.
I'll ask.
English and Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a subscriber list for that newsletter?
There may be. We have them for our newsletters
Right.
that aren't, because our department has a sustainability newsletter. If you're not signed up, seek
I get
Carla
that
or
one.
Pemba. Yeah. But I'm not sure if there's a subscriber list for the Cotati Connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the most general one that the city puts out. So
Is that monthly?
Yes,
Is
it is
monthly, yeah.
And is it included in the electronic?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay, because I have my water bill on auto pay, so like I look at it for how much it's gonna be and then I don't look any further. So
Yeah.
All if there's anything else included.
Yeah.
And you
Um,
take out a loan?
Huh? Take out a loan for oh my gosh, I don't want to talk about my water bill right now. Kids.
We have at where I live, there's a board where you can post something. I would like to have that there. I
Yeah.
wonder if you could go to all the affordable housing developments and give flyers so that they can post them around. We can't go onto their property, but they probably would put something up
Yeah,
for the city if the city requested it.
it's a great suggestion.
I'm thinking about people who are renters and who are not homeowners,
Yeah,
are
I
not
just-
going to get a water bill.
Yeah, I do want to point out that we are working on a list of HOA and mobile house list, so we can also put that out next time that we have
Great.
the annual housing fair and other initiative that city has done, especially for workshop series that we have and climate ready fair, Cotati.
And I wondered about also including our new affordable housing developer, Bird Feather.
Redbird? Or
Redbird.
Freebird, I'm sorry, Freebird.
Sorry, I've got to get in touch with her. Freebird as somebody who could sit on the panel. I would like to open it up to others than the usual suspects.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe an idea, and I don't know what the cost would be, but the Cotati Neighbors magazine. Something can possibly be in that. And back to this survey, the one thing that I thought was really interesting was the question, what do you feel the most important housing issues facing Cotati today? And it was 18% on every one of those categories except for the other. So
Right.
it's pretty even out there,
Mhm.
everybody's feelings.
From the 18 people who submitted it.
It's kind of on the topic of the survey, do we give, is it like multiple choice questions? or
Yes, it is a multiple choice.
do we give any opportunity for them to just like free form thoughts or anything like that?
I believe we had few questions regards to that, but because we had a combined data from other housing surveys as well, and some of the some of the questions were inconsistent over the years. So these were the common topics or common questions over the years that we kind of combined together to kind of show you guys more comprehensive data. But we did have some of the options.
We
So-
do have a lot of narrative responses and we can share that data with the commission
Uh-huh.
if you're interested in seeing it. We were trying to, as Pema was talking about, we're trying to synthesize. We didn't want to just give you 18 responses, right? When the request came, because we mentioned the survey.
Yeah.
And so we looked at over the last, I think 5 years,
Right.
we probably had 250 responses. And so we synthesized those, they weren't the same survey every time.
Mhm.
And so Pema went through and synthesized them to the questions that were most similar, were able to be aggregated,
Mhm.
and that's what you're seeing. So we can share some of the more narrative and general responses. It'll just be in kind of just a rough format, but there's a lot of really insightful information.
You could use AI to summarize it too pretty easily.
We probably could.
I almost hate to advocate for AI with all the environmental concerns, but I have found it to be very helpful for that type of thing.
What type of home do you currently live in? Nobody responded from mobile homes. So that's another,
Right.
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. and-
Independent senior housing, that's another. So reaching out to the folks who are not receiving the information, who don't necessarily go online, who don't necessarily check with AI. I've never checked with AI yet. I don't think I ever will. I'm hoping I die before I check with AI, or maybe I'll check with AI. Am I going to die? And then I'll know. However, we need to reach the folks who are offline,
Mhm.
Yeah.
who still buy they use cash. Yes.
I have
Absolutely.
a suggestion for that. When Leadership Roanoke Park started off, which is now Pathways to Leadership, which both of you went through, class 1 for their class project, one of the things that they looked at doing was going around and compiling a list like Shelley's talking about, where they created kind of a distribution list as a community service project, got all of the contacts, and then were able to give it to the city so that they could then distribute it. And everyone on those contact lists had agreed, yes, I will either translate this into the language that's necessary for my population, I will post it, kind of stuff like that. And so maybe if it's not a lift that the city could do right now, it is something that a citizen or someone going through the current, I don't know if there's a current Pathways to Leadership class going on, that we could suggest to them be a class project.
Yeah, and the notification piece, I assume it was probably put on that board in front of the firehouse, right?
Yes.
I know it's hard to
Yeah.
read, but one other option, I don't know if it's possible, like, you know how when there's construction happening or a street's closed and the city sends a notification out, is that something we could use for this, or does it have to be some sort of like safety thing?
Yeah, we try to be kind of stay in certain silos with certain things, but we did use it on all of our social media channels, so Facebook and Instagram, and on the website. It was
Yes,
available on the
Newsflash.
website banner.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we want to do a note, like a text or a notification, but we could consider that.
I mean, if it's allowed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The other thing I will add, so this is our department specific effort, kind of the housing element preparation, and then since then, and then the housing fair. But the city does an biannual citywide survey, scientifically, statistically significant, hires a firm. And that's, I believe, multiple. So they do phone call, they do in person, they do all these different ways to try to get a very broad swath of the community. And the last 2 surveys, so over the last 4 years, housing has overwhelmingly been the number one concern from that. And that gets presented, and it's excellent data, and it's available. So we can also share that with the commission if you all haven't seen that yet. But it's, as I mentioned, statistically significant and very, very, I mean, it's a professional survey.
You mentioned in person, like, would someone posting up in front of Oliver's or something like that be an option too, to have people take the survey? Or is that?
I
not?
believe we've done that with some things. I don't know if we did that for the survey.
Not
It
for
was
the
Santero.
survey.
But yeah, that is an option.
Yeah, okay.
It's a good idea.
Get a lot of foot traffic
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Did you say Santero? Yeah.
When they were redoing the transit-oriented community,
Uh-huh.
they set up tables at at Oliver's.
Uh-huh.
That's right. That's right. That's what it was.
More questions or feedback on this item?
In person, maybe the train station too would be a good option.
Yeah.
Want to have someone hang out there.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thanks, Pemba.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, one last question.
Okay.
Just thought of- are we having, I'm sorry, guys.
Let me back up.
The survey that we're sending out, is it going to be consistent? You mentioned that we got differing responses
Right.
over the years, but now we're sending out the same survey.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because we want to have more comparable data year by year, being pretty consistent, because it's going to be an annual thing. So we'll have like year by year data to compare it
Okay.
towards. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. No more questions.
So yeah, item 9, reports by staff. Just briefly want to mention, we will be having a February 2nd meeting. So keep that on your agenda. It will not be as long as tonight's agenda. And then I want to highlight some of the work that Pema and Carla have been working on with Autumn. So kind of keeping up with the Climate Ready Cotati Fair. The sustainability kind of folks in our department have created a Climate Ready workshop series. And so there's workshops planned throughout the whole year, partnering with City of Rohnert Park, ourselves, and the Rohnert Park Cotati Library. And they're all different themes. And the first one is February 7th from 10 to noon at the library. And it's called Waste Not, Want Not. And it's partnering with Zero Waste Sonoma, Recology, Zero Waste Action Sonoma County. And the description, there's a webpage dedicated to this. And the description for this one is explore the 4 R's: reduce, recycle, repurpose, and reuse, and how to work them into your lifestyle. From what goes where into your waste bins to shopping to reduce waste, how to put on a clothing swap with your friends. Best practices will save you money and keep all the good stuff out of the landfill. And then all workshop attendees will receive free compost bucket and reference materials. So these are going to be almost monthly, and there will be giveaways at each one, and they're going to be rotating around Rohnert Park, the library, and City of Cotati. And the next one in March is the Climate Ready Cotati Fair at the Smart Station, and that's March 28th from 10 to 2. So I just wanted to highlight those. A lot of good work's been done by Carla and Pema and Autumn, and I just really want to highlight that. They're basically growing an event from scratch, and have been doing an excellent job. So we really just want to appreciate their efforts. And that concludes my presentation.
Just that I will be at the second meeting, but I'm going to have knee replacement surgery, so I will probably miss any other meetings in February. Everything I hear has been, it's great. For the first 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's worth it.
Yeah, I hope it's the right move.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Then we will adjourn the meeting. It is 9:35. Thank you. Thanks, Kimberly.